We're all owned by the syndicate, body and soul. Or should I just say body?
Hello, filthy movie lovers, something weirdos, and anti-criterion bros, to the 34th episode of The Sin Syndicate, where to know is to love, and we never forget our mother's gangbang spinal injury. My name is Gentry Austin, writer and researcher, and I'm here with my co-host, adult film historian Casey Scott. And we're digging deep into the sexploitation ledger this week, the Curt Ledger to be exact, as we look at the darkly comedic follow-up to one of the nastiest roughies of all time, director Curt Ledger's epic, erotic, coming-of-age dramedy, It's Francy's Friday. But before we welcome on this week's special guest, by unpopular demand, we thought we'd warm ourselves up with a quick rundown of the New Beverly Cinema's recently unveiled March lineup, which is a continuation of last month's tribute to the old Arrows Theater. But before that, I have a last-minute update from Jane Garrett, author of John Willie, A Bizarre Life, available everywhere books are sold, who gave an introduction to a live screening of Satan in High Heels last Friday at the Beacon Theater in Seattle. So I will summarize her message. She said the screening went well. Lots of folks came out. People were laughing at all the right campy parts. She said a lot of people showed up wearing their leather, which was great. She also said that the festival director, Deanna Berger, provided some background on the print they were watching, which was the same one that Something Weird Video used for their VHS release of the film in 1993. Speaking of, SWV boss lady Lisa Petrucci even passed along a nice message to the audience. So that's sweet. Jane also concluded by saying it was a lot of fun, and the audience seemed really engaged and interested in her historical intro about Leonard Bertman and the mid-century fetish industry. So all in all, a huge success. All right, March, Arrows calendar, New Beverly. Let's just get into this, Casey. I think we should.
That we're gonna do this again. Wow.
I know. I think that we'll kind of cruise through this because that other podcast I know is going to go much more in depth about them. So we'll just give our quick thoughts. How does that sound?
Yeah, I mean they're also biased, so
yeah.
It's not like they aren't directly connected to the venue.
Yeah, I am curious to listen to it though when it is released because sometimes they have little nuggets about where the source prints are from, where they're sourcing.
That I do like to know. Yes, I do like to know that. Right. And I feel like they also took some cues from you because a lot of stuff this month is over multiple days. Which
you're right.
You had said for February, there are very few one-night only things. So
yeah, you're right. I did like that. Yeah, I was like, wait, actually, there's not that much for us to cover because it is spanning multiple days for some of these.
Yeah, and for as many people as complaining about this already, very few actual sex films on this release. It's a lot of
Right.
foreign art films, American NC-17 titles, Euro horror, women in prison stuff. Like so this is actually a safer schedule than last month, which I'm not complaining about, but
Hmm.
people will.
Well,
Anyway,
they're kicking it off with the Casey approved Alice in
yes.
Wonderland, which you just screened.
I did, which went over very well. I don't know if it's the same print though, with the opening promo for Wizard of Oz, which I posted about all over the place. That's the only photographic evidence that's the only thing that was ever shot for that movie was a promo with Christine
Hmm.
DeBelle and Jason Williams, and it was at the head of the print that was shown at Nighthawk. I don't know if it's the same print.
So that'll be an indicator if it is the same print. Yeah, if they
Yeah, so
show
if it
that.
opens
Yep.
with Christine DeBelle saying hi, it's Christine DeBelle from Alice in Wonderland, and that would be great. And Cinderella print might be the Exhumed Films print, but yeah, this is a double feature that I actually suggested that they should do. Somebody should do it because they're both great. The music is good in both, and it's one's East Coast, one's West Coast. I think Cinderella's better, but I love both of them. They're both
Hmm.
both a lot of fun.
Well, that's really funny. Yeah, if they
Yeah,
are actually listening,
I know.
someone somewhere.
I don't know.
But that's March 2nd and 3rd, so that's kicking off the month there. March 4th and 5th, we got Lolita, not the Kubrick one. This is the Adrian
Yeah.
Lyne Lolita. What are your
Yes.
thoughts on this? I actually don't remember it that well.
I remember when it came out because I think it was I think it was Showtime. I don't think it played theatrically. That's why I'm kind of maybe it must have played theatrically. They have prints, but I remember it for some reason being associated with Showtime. Maybe it did a festival run. I don't care for it. Dominique Swain is Lolita. There still hasn't been a good film version of Lolita because it's kind of impossible to film because
Hmm.
all the film versions have made it so it looks sexier. It makes the source material look more perverse than it actually is. The
Yeah.
movie, the movies are a little too about the titillation, and they make the hero of the movie a little too sympathetic. The book is not like that, and
No.
so there's a lot of reckoning to do with both the book and the movie. Odd choice instead of the
Yeah.
Sue Lyon one, but
Yeah, I wonder why they're not going with the Kubrick. I mean, what I remember about the Kubrick one is that it did capture some of the humor in the book better than the Adrian Lyne one.
yeah.
But I mean,
I don't
yeah,
think there's any humor in that one, is there? I feel like Line took it like way more serious.
yeah, I think so
Yeah.
from what I remember of it. But yeah, I saw Sean Baker posted like a story, a screenshot of Lolita, the
Mhm.
poster, and he was excited about it. So I'm sure he's
Right.
gonna get some hate mail from all the people online that are like, "This is child porn." Of course, Quentin Tarantino's showing it.
Oh
He's
yeah,
a
somebody said that, and I was like, no. They showed that last month. It was called Bacchanal Sexual, and that already was shown.
stop it.
So that was already shown. We already saw underage girls, and they've showed Defiance of Good. That would have been not great, or Violation of Claudia.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sean Baker. Until you follow us back, you're kind of on my shit list. So
Yeah.
follow us back. What's the problem?
Yeah,
I don't
I don't know.
understand. I feel
He,
very slighted and hurt.
Yeah, I'm sure his mentions are just insane. So even if I did
Oh, I'm
tag him, he's
sure.
not going to see it. So
Right. Well, we need to wait until one of our releases comes out and then he gets it. And then he's like, oh, right, I'm not following these guys because he
yeah,
followed not only Two and the Pinky, he followed their individual Instagram. So I'm like,
I know.
I need that.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which release is he going to pick up soon that might have us on it? Well, we can't really say.
Probably the Kino one, probably. Well, I don't know, both
Yeah,
Kinos probably.
yeah, that's
And
right.
the other Agfa one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll kind of probably get into it a little bit as we get through this, but yeah,
Hmm.
the some of the remarks online about this have been ridiculous. Just like, look, there's nothing in here that is child porn just because,
No. It's also not a sex film. It's an R-rated film.
yeah,
It's not even erotic. It's not erotic. So it's like it's so we're already beginning early this month of something that is not an erotic film or a sex film, but
right.
it's because it's programmed in the vicinity of these films, people are going to think, "Oh, just more sex films." Like this is an R-rated feature with Jeremy Irons, Dominic Swain, directed by
Yeah.
Adrian Lyne. it is not a sex film. So you'll hear
Yeah.
that a lot as we go through this calendar too.
Oh, I just remember this is like going down memory lane. I listened to the audiobook of Lolita and it had Jeremy Irons reading it and it was amazing. So
That's
if you,
interesting.
yeah, he has such a
Okay.
great voice for it.
Yeah, he's good.
Anyways, Faster Pussycat Kill Kill and Motorcycle March 6th, 7th,
Yep.
and 8th. 3 days for Russ Meyer double feature. I like it.
Yep. It's perfect. And
Yep.
both of those movies are great. You get to
Yep.
see Motorcycle was great because of Haji. And Faster Pussycat Kill Kill is start to finish perfection. So that, yeah, definitely I would go all 3 days if I could because I love all three of those so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would want to see the reactions of the different crowds. And I
Mhm.
love both of those movies. So yeah.
Yep. Great double feature.
Mhm.
March 9th. Yeah, this is a funny one. They're doing Italian sex
Mm,
comedies. This is for Sean Baker. Apparently, he's making an Italian sex comedy inspired movie. That's what he says. So maybe he'll
sure.
show up to this.
Hopefully it's
Yeah,
funny.
we got more
Hopefully his
Laura
movie's funny.
Antonelli, Giancarlo
Hmm.
Giannini. I like. I haven't seen
Somebody
either of
loves
these.
Laura Antonelli. Somebody loves her.
Yeah.
I don't get it. We don't have a Gloria Guida movie, but Sex with a Smile, we at the very least have Ed Vige and Barbara Boucher, and
Yeah.
that's good casting.
And Thomas
So
Million's in that, but it's also got Marty Feldman,
I'm
who
not.
I
He's not
think people
sexy.
recognize. Yeah.
Yes, that's right, Marty Feldman. And Thomas Milian is no Franco Nero or Fabio Testi. Okay, yeah.
Ooh,
Give me a sex
hot
movie with one of
take.
them.
Hot
Yeah, Thomas.
take.
Well, in terms of attractiveness, no, Thomas Milian's not attractive. He's not sexy. Fabio Testi and Franco Nero, smoking hot. But yeah,
Yeah.
no. Thomas Milian wasn't cast in movies like that as like romantic leads
No,
and stuff. Yeah.
no. But yeah,
So
they're this is going to be interesting because with regard to these Italian sexy comedies, even the ones with like Edwidge Fenech, everybody knows Edwidge, but they're not being released by like boutique labels in the US because it just
no,
the comedy just doesn't translate well. So
no. I think No Shame put out a few ages ago on DVD, but I don't think they've been reissued.
yeah.
Um, which is interesting because I feel like a box set that would only work and would only
Yeah.
sell if you got her on camera like No Shame did, which was major when they put out, Strange Vice and one of the other ones. I don't remember now. But they got her on camera, and it was the only time she's ever done an interview for a Blu-ray release or a home video release of her stuff.
Yeah.
It's actually the smile is Martino, right? So that
Yeah,
would
it's
make
another
sense.
Martino, which
Yeah,
is
because she was
funny.
married to his brother at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this will go over probably like a lead weight, but that's okay. I kind of
One
like
night
the idea
only.
that they're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
it's fine.
yeah. Showgirls is getting a 3 day window here. That'll
Wow.
be obviously a hit.
Love that movie, but once again, not a sex movie. It's just
No.
it's an NC-17 general release film. Great movie, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think it definitely indicates kind of how this month is not. This is not an Eros movie.
Yeah, this
This
is
is like this is something they would show at like the Egyptian. This is a mainstream title, you know.
well, they're losing money on all these other days, so they'll make it back on these 3 days.
Right. Now they need to get Elizabeth Berkley to show up to one of those.
Yeah, they got her on that was it Vinegar Syndrome re-release? That home
She's
video
not on
release?
that.
Oh, she's not.
She's
Oh,
not on that. No.
okay.
I think she asked MGM at one point for a certain amount of money. I think like $2,500 for an interview, and they said no. And
Oh, that's what I
so
heard. Yeah.
I don't think they asked because they thought she'd ask the same amount of money. And it's like you pay her that money because you're gonna make it back because
Yeah.
you get her on the record talking about this major movie. The $2,500 is worth it.
Oh,
You know.
yeah.
I think didn't Arnold Schwarzenegger make like 10K for doing a commentary for Conan, which is crazy because he's not even on camera and he had nothing to say.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. It was I think it was a major thing when they did the Conan commentary with the director of that. I think he sat with the director. It was a long
Wow.
time ago. But yeah.
All right. We got March 13th and 14th going back to Pasolini, his Decameratics. They're doing the Decameron.
Yeah.
I like it.
Pass.
2 days. Yeah, that's fine.
Pass.
Yeah. No comment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're giving it a pass.
Yeah.
All right.
Pass. Yeah.
You're not really a Pasolini guy, are you?
I like everything around the Decameron and Canterbury Tales and stuff. I don't care for those.
Oh, okay.
I like Salo. I like Mama Roma. Yeah, I like his early. I like his stuff from the '60s, and then I like
Hmm.
Salo. I don't. Yeah, the costume things I don't like.
Okay. Do you like the erotic Canterbury Tales movie, the hardcore film with Hypatia
The
Lee?
D'Amato movie?
No, the
Did
Hypatia
D'Amato
Lee
do
one.
that? Oh, Ribble Tales of Canterbury? I do.
Yeah, Ribald. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I do.
All right, March 15th, we have a wild one. Go
Yeah,
off,
gay porn.
Casey.
Gay porn finally. I mean, Forbidden Letters is great, and I forget the supplier of these prints already mentioned what the second feature is, and I forget what it is. And I think there's a third feature that also is like a mystery feature.
Hmm. I
I
already
lo-
forgot.
if I love Brisson. Forbidden Letters is great. I think this is going to go over, like you said, like the proverbial lead balloon with this audience.
Yes.
This is a very straight audience. So I think it's a bold risk. I'm glad that they're including them. And if you're going to do gay porn, these are good ones to do. Forbidden Letters is much more of an art film, but I forget what the other one is.
It's on a
I'll check
Sunday
it.
night. Wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, very. I like that. The day of our
On the
Lord,
Lord's
watching gay
Day.
porn.
Yep.
I do love that. Okay, good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I have nothing to say about that. I think, yeah, it'll be very curious to see the reactions.
I'm
Um,
intrigued. Yeah.
yeah. March 16th, Jess Franco
Good
double.
one.
One night only. That's what I'm upset about. Give this 2 nights,
Yeah,
guys.
I agree.
And these are two films that haven't really, I don't think that they've gotten a nice US home video release. So
No, Venus
maybe
and
this is
Furs
a,
and Succubus. No,
yeah, there's some,
no,
I think there's some rights issues there.
maybe,
But these are two
possibly.
of Jess's, yeah, best 69 movies.
Hmm.
I hope they do well. I hope people like them. I don't know. I think this is two good ones. If you're not familiar with Franco, these are two good ones to start with. Very
Yeah,
psychedelic, erotic,
I
cool
agree.
music. Yeah, what do you have to say?
They're good. I love them
Yeah.
both. Go see it. Yep.
Yep. And like I said, yeah, hopefully these get a home video release because, yeah, both of these would be huge hits if Severin got them for UHD or whoever.
Right.
March 17th and 18th. What is this? They don't even have a title for this pairing. What is this? Like women
I don't either.
prostitutes,
I think
women.
so. Woman in Flames is a 1983 film. Belle de Jour is 67, the Buñuel film. Woman in Flames is so obscure that I'm not familiar with it, and I love Belle de Jour. So I would probably go see this double feature too,
Hmm.
just because I'd like to know what Woman in Flames is. I think it's a
Yeah.
German film, German or
Yep.
Swedish, possibly.
Yeah, it's housewives stepping out kind of thing. I
I
guess that's the
guess.
theme.
Yeah.
But Fellini's Casanova, March 19th and 20th. Pass.
One of my least favorite Fellini films.
Yeah.
It's tough if you're going to do. Actually, you know what would have been great for this? City of Women, because that is probably the one of the closest films to sexploitation that Fellini did. Because it's very focused on this man obsessed with women and his relationships with women. It also has Beatrice what's her face from Macabre and Extro in it. I recall
Oh.
she's a woman on the train. Yeah, Casanova's not good. It's Donald Sutherland hamming it up, being annoying. Yeah, I don't care for it. So pass. Yeah.
Yeah, this might be another one of those cases where it's just like this is one of the prints that they have access to, so this is
That's
what we
not,
play.
and I'll say it again, not a reason to program something because you have a print. And also, it's not, yeah, it's not a sex film as well. So it's just
Yeah.
like if you're keeping with the Eros, I don't know. I think at this point they are kind of trying to be like, well, we want other people to come out, so we have to show stuff that isn't sex. Like it's Casanova's not great. Satyricon is better too. That would have been good too.
March 21st and 22nd, your favorite guy,
Hmm.
Radley Metzger, double feature.
The only two softcore films of his that I can tolerate. And
Yeah.
Therese and Isabel is a masterpiece, and I've seen both of these theatrically at the Lincoln Center. Trace and Isabel is really incredible to see with an audience. It's really beautiful on the big screen, and Licorice Quartet is good. I like
Yeah.
Licorice Quartet; it's very good. So that's a good double feature.
Yeah, it is.
I would go to one of those two. Yeah.
Yep. Go see Frank Wolf on the big screen, guys.
Yes,
Licorice
before he killed
Quartet.
himself. Yeah. Like literally before he killed himself. Didn't he kill himself like a year after that movie came out?
Yeah, pretty soon after. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love that guy.
And then
Anyways,
also, what's her face died too. The lead actress of that movie died tragically young too of cancer.
oh
She was
yeah.
Camille 2000. Yeah, she
Yep.
died very young too. But Therese and Isabel is also Essie Persson, who I'm obsessed with. She is one of probably my favorite Swedish actress ever. I love her. So yeah,
Yep. That's a good one. Two thumbs up.
yep.
Christina Lindbergh double. Ooh boy.
Mm, mm. Love
I
both
lo-
of these. The Depraved and Campus Swingers. Now, so very different type of movies.
yeah.
Very different.
I don't know if there's any differences in the depraved version than the exposed titled version.
I
I'm
don't
not
believe so. I don't think
okay.
Jared, because wasn't Depraved, I think it was Cinemation. I don't
It's
think there was
just a
anything
different
added or
title.
cut. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a straight import. But it's great. I love Depraved.
Yeah. You said that you weren't sure how these were going to go over. I mean, I think the depraved is going to go over pretty well. I think there's no really strong sexual assault. I mean, I'm just thinking
It's
back
just the
to
general distastefulness of that film.
sure,
It's just
but
distasteful, which is fine. I mean, it lives up to the title.
yeah, Christina's amazing in that one.
She's great. She's great
Yeah.
in that. Campus Swingers is a schoolgirl report movie that might actually go over worse,
Yeah,
but
that's what I was gonna say. That's gonna go
it
over way worse.
I enjoy it though. And you know what's funny? You know, I ordered all those from MVD finally on DVD. They finally shipped and they're arriving today, so I can actually get
Oh,
into my schoolgirl report mode. I love those problematic suckers. I'm sorry. Like
yeah.
so, there's something because I when I grew up in Germany, I would watch them on late night TV when my parents were asleep
Oh
in
wow.
German. So I would just watch these terrible German sexploitation movies in German, and it helped me learn the language. To be honest,
Oh. Do
yeah.
the MVD Blu-rays have multiple language options?
They're impulse DVDs.
But are
Yeah,
they,
they're
do
not
they,
on Blu-ray.
is there an English dub on there?
No, just
Oh,
German
okay.
and English subs. I have DVD-Rs of all of the like private screenings VHS, so I'll just shove them into the DVD case with
Yeah,
those.
just curious. Yeah, Campus Swingers. I would love to watch the audience for that one. I mean, it's a trip.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. But March 24th, 25th, Henry and June. Yeah, this is
Also, not a
another
sex film.
mainstream, something you could watch
NC-17
on,
art film.
yeah,
Yeah.
like late night television.
A pass. I'm not interested.
Yeah, I have nothing to
I love
say.
Philip Kaufman, but not interested. No, thank you.
March 26th and 27th. This is a fun one.
This is what we're talking
Rosalba.
about. There's
Yeah.
Albinary double feature, another absolute icon that I worship.
Yes.
And Amok is terrific because you also got Barbara Boucher, Slaughter Hotel. She is kind of the best thing about that. There's no reason why she needed to show up on set and go as hard as she did in her performance in that film for that
Yeah.
piece of garbage. She really
Yeah.
brings it hard. And it's just like, you didn't need to be so good in this. This is clearly garbage,
Yeah. I
but
mean,
it's
even
very
DeLeo
enjoyable.
knows it's garbage. Yeah.
Correct. It's phoned in, but like she shows up looking gorgeous, really like bringing something to the portrayal of a nymphomaniac. She's very good. She's
Hmm.
always good though. And she's great in Amok. I mean, Amok is great. That is one I that's another one I might go both nights actually
Yeah.
because I love Rosalba that much. I would like to see audience reactions 2 nights in a row to her.
Yeah. Those two girls, Boucher and Rosalba, are going to have some new fans for sure after
I
this
hope so. You better
screening.
believe I'm hot in those comments.
Yeah.
I'm telling people, guys, focus.
Yeah.
Focus. Let's lock in on the Boucher and the Neri, please. Let's lock in and focus.
Yeah.
These are icons, please.
I'm actually kind of, I almost wasn't sure if you were going to be a fan of Amok or not. A lot of
Oh, I
people
love
kind
Amok.
of don't like that movie, even
Well,
Giallo
they're
heads.
wrong.
Yeah, they
No,
are.
it is so good. It is so good. That was one when they came out on a DVD years ago through like DVD drive-in, actually, when they did it was like a full frame VHS transfer. And they interviewed both Barbara and Rosalba on like a camcorder because they live like literally down the street from each other. They're
Yeah.
next door neighbors.
Yeah, I remember her
Um,
saying that.
and I still have that DVD. But yeah, I mean, what's not to love about that? The soundtrack is amazing.
Oh yeah.
That song, Sexually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so good. Yeah, actually, I might watch that after we finish recording.
You get to see Farley Granger like slutting
It's
it up in
actually
his
good.
Italian era.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is not phoned in. He doesn't phone it in. Yeah, I love Amok. I loved it even in the full frame version. So when it finally came out, I got the Camera Obscura release, and it was like seeing it for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that movie.
March 28th and 29th, The Hot Box and Terminal Island. It's kind of a
Yeah,
drive-in Women in Prison
Very
double
much
feature
so.
here.
I love both movies. So I would go see both. I prefer Terminal Island. Actually, the better double feature would probably be Sweet Sugar and Terminal Island because they're
Yeah.
both at least Rothman directed Terminal Island and she wrote Sweet Sugar. I think Sweet Sugar was the original script for something. But Hotbox is good. Hotbox is Margaret Markov, who's terrific. And there's a few other people in that. Lori Rose is in Hotbox, aka Jennifer
Okay.
Brooks, some adult version of Jekyll and Hyde. But Terminal Island is a masterpiece, and I've always loved that movie. It's so good.
Yep.
So yeah, not sex films, but I highly recommend both of
Yeah,
those.
that'd be a fun one. That's a
Yeah.
fun weekend screening. And last, but definitely least, March 30th and
Hmm.
31st, Last Tango in Paris. I mean,
I think
historically, I
it's.
think we can agree it's an important film. I think it sucks.
Hmm. I have never liked it.
No,
Uh, and I was very mad when it was reissued on the Distripix label. And I will say again, Distripix wasn't happy about that either.
no,
Um, wasn't their choice. But yeah, I also think it's an interesting choice considering what we know now about the production of that film
right.
and how Marie Schneider was mistreated and essentially assaulted on camera without her knowledge.
Yeah, these people that are haunting comments like saying it's inappropriate to be showing Lolita, Adrian Lyne's Lolita.
This is way more
This is
inappropriate.
way more inappropriate from,
Yeah, this is
from
way more
that
inappropriate.
perspective. If that's your perspective that, that
Yeah.
we shouldn't be showing any film that there was inappropriate things going on behind the scenes. It's funny that Alex, when we talked to him a few episodes ago, he talked about how that's sort of a barrier. He's seen that as a barrier in his experience trying to show 60s sex films to people that
Hmm.
they all assume that, there was nefarious things going on behind the scenes. And I had never
Hmm.
considered that, like that people would think that. But here's a real
And I
case
don't
of
know
that.
where they're yes, and I don't know where they're getting that from. It's just supposition that any kind of film with sex as its focus is automatically taking advantage of women and they didn't sign up for it and
Right.
there's like moral ambiguity there, but that's not the case.
Absolutely not.
Even in adults not squeaky clean either when it gets into hardcore. But yeah, it's and also there were sleazy people in softcore too. But no, this is a case of some like a major director and a major star collaborating together to make this woman's life hell on set. That's a major motion picture. It's not a sex film. So the fact that it's happening on a mainstream set should tell you where the real problems are, which is
Yeah.
on the people in power in Hollywood. That's the kind of shit that they would do and get away with. That's what we're
Yeah.
talking about here.
And which
Yeah.
we've heard people talk about that were in the business that,
Right.
the low budget sexploitation films, that was the fun stuff, where there were no
Right.
issues, but it's when they started going to these mainstream Hollywood pictures where they ran into the real sleaze bags.
Right. So I say pass on that, not just for moral reasons, but it's also not, it's just not good. It's boring as hell. It's not erotic. Marlon Brando keeps his clothes on for most of the movie because he's fat and chicken shit. So it really is. It really does feel more exploitive when it's not
Yeah.
equal opportunity nudity and sex.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just think he's so annoying in that movie and it's just not great. But I mean, if you haven't seen it before, I think everyone should see it at least once. I'm not someone who says you should never see a certain film for any particular reason. Well, I shouldn't say that. Maybe that's going too
Well,
far, but
right.
maybe there are some films that I would completely say you
Maybe.
should never see. But we won't go there. That's another
No.
discussion. Right.
So let her try her way.
It's going to be a long day today. Tommy and his friends won't be here until 8 o'clock. How the hell am I supposed to entertain two married couples? They'll probably look down their righteous noses at me and think, slut.
Like episode 31, Loveland, where we looked at Gary Kent's softcore hotel set masterpiece, Secret Places, Secret Things, with guest Chris Poggiali. This week, we gave our guest carte blanche in his choice of film pick. And he brought us another extremely underseen obscurity with currently less than 10 logged views on Letterboxd. So I'm going to ask him the same question I asked Chris. Shawn Langrick, welcome. Who are you and why did you pick this movie?
Well, I've been described by someone who will not name as a, let's see, I got this written down from the actual posting, a keyboard jockey doing hack research in my spare time. So that's who I am.
Hey, I've heard worse.
Yeah. So thanks for having me. Who am I? That's always a good question. For our purposes today, we'll say I'm a film researcher, historian, writer, talker, whatever. I like films. I like especially, the type of films you guys cover. I'll put it that way. I've always had a knack for research, and I'm one of those guys who can't get through a film without pausing it about 36 times to, look up who is that person, where's that location, especially the locations. I have a special affinity for film locations, which I guess is kind of how Joe Rubin from Vinegar Syndrome first noticed me. I'd started lurking on the Vinegar Syndrome Facebook group it's been about 7 years ago now, back what I consider the golden era of that group, when we had folks like, Charles Devlin, who's still around, very much still around, but Christopher Elam,
rest in peace.
Greg Javer, also rest in peace. Guys like that, and there's a few other names who I won't mention because they're no longer part of the group. But I finally got up enough gumption to start posting some comments and stuff myself, and got noticed by Joe. And the rest is history, I guess I could say there. I think he also took notice whenever I did on my personal blog. I posted an article. I'd done a very deep dive on Mickey Mouse movies. And not the kinds your kids watch, hopefully. But I discovered that it was, in some places and at a certain period, a code for adult movies, especially in Hawaii. So I did a whole article on that, which I think caught his attention. And so we started chatting, and he eventually, I got to meet him when I was in New York, one of the trips I was up for. He was always sending me stuff to, hey, what do you think of this? Can you look into this? That sort of stuff. That led to a couple of opportunities to do film commentaries, one for Titus Moody's The Last of the American Hobos, and Titus will come back up in a minute, and also the locations commentary for Hollywood 90028, which, by the way, Mark Edward Hoyt did a far better commentary for that, as he should have. That was his baby, gestating for 15 years, I think, to make that release happen. And I've done a number of other commentaries in the last few years. I worked with Greg Javer, who was doing the Hardwood collection for Severin on Ed Wood's hardcore stuff. Although the film I did the commentary for is not hardcore; it's The Only House in Town. And if this goes well, I'd like to twist your guys' arm to come back at some point and talk about that movie as well, because we did a commentary, then years passed before it came out. I found out a ton more stuff, corrected some stuff, redid the commentary, and Severin put the wrong one on the release. So I'd love the opportunity to talk about that film. And Casey, I'll twist your arm a lot on that. It's got, of course, Ushi in it. It's got Yola. Yeah. It's got Jane. Come on, we got to talk.
I think we kind of talked about it, didn't we, Casey, when we were thinking about an Ed Wood movie to cover?
I don't recall. I might have said no automatically.
Yeah, I think you did.
But the thing is, if knowing Shawn and his amount of research, that might be the arm twisting I need, because then it would make me see it in a different light than the whatever the hell that is now.
Far less about the film and about everything around it, honestly.
Yeah.
I've tracked down all the people in it. I've tracked down the house. I've tracked down the guy that rented them the house and interviewed him. So what more do you need, Casey? Come on.
Damn. Wow.
So Titus Moody, I mentioned earlier, because of Joe, I guess I'm kind of an expert, or becoming an expert, I guess, on Titus. I have a whole archive of his personal and professional elements that I've become the steward of. And, I guess his ghost has been prompting me enough. I'm, I guess, now officially writing a biography about Titus.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So don't look for that anytime soon, but I've interviewed his twin sister quite extensively at the end of last year. I've been interviewing James Bryan, the director that worked with him on Dirtiest Game, among other films, and we actually still talk almost on a weekly basis now. So, and I have a growing amount of people I need to try to find, and also, interview and other things other elements I want to try to get a hold of as well there. So that's kind of who I am. Why did I want to talk about Francy in particular and Curt Ledger? For the last 28 years, I'm one of these old school guys. I've worked at the same place for 28 years. It's been bought and broken out and reacquired and all sorts of stuff, but it's basically the same company. And its headquarters, either it's global, it's regional, or whatever headquarters throughout all that different eras has been in New Jersey, specifically the Woodbridge, New Jersey area. So I kind of become a second home for me. I work from home, but, it used to be a lot more that I would travel up there, but I got very familiar, and I am very familiar with that area. So when I first got wind that there had been a film made in New Jersey and in that area, I had to find out more about it. Now, Francy is one of those films that was in that Distribupix sort of, they had to yank him. And Casey, you know more about that than I do, right? What happened with that?
Well, that was one of the last titles that something weird released on DVD-R. It was in their second to last batch. And they didn't even say it was a Distripix title. So I think they released it and they didn't even attach it to Distripix.
They didn't know.
Yeah. So I don't know if they yanked it or not, because I after they stopped doing DVD-Rs, I kind of lost, because I bought them all. So I lost touch of what happened, what went out of print and what they kept making. So that wouldn't surprise me though if they had to, because I know Steven had to kind of make up with something weird after a while. There was some stuff going on there, but yeah.
I believe when I asked Lisa, that's what she had said. It was part of that Distribupix sort of it. She wasn't, there's nothing that would allude to that in the film or anything that I've seen, but it was part of that, or it was questionable perhaps. So, out of caution, they yanked it and everything. So it wasn't available. But Lisa, in her enabling goodness, sent me the last copy that she had on the shelf for Christmas one year. So that's how I first got a hold of it there. And it did not disappoint. The very first frame, I was immediately like, I know exactly where that is. Because I'd been there.
Oh my God. Wow.
Okay. You mean the first frame where Francy's on the hillside, like the funeral scene?
The cemetery, yeah.
The cemetery, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I was just there 2 weeks ago. I have to drive through that to get from my office to the hotel. So that's how. And that's only the first of many relations I have with the film itself. But yeah, so that's why I got interested in it. And of course, since I again am in New Jersey, or have been in New Jersey a lot, I took the opportunity. I was up there for an extended time for a project 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. And I had time that I wasn't in the office. So I did a whole location sort of field trip, if you will. So, and we'll get to this when we get into the locations on the film, but the house, I've been there. I've been to the car wash. I've been to the airport. I've been to the house that She Came on the Bus was filmed at. So again, we'll get into that in more detail as we dive into the films there. But that's why I asked for these films, because I did spend some time finding out about it, finding about other locations, finding about some of the people. I've actually am in contact with Curtis Ledger's daughter. We have not had a chance to actually speak on the phone because I'm terrible at scheduling, evidently, at least with her. So that will hopefully happen in the next week. And if anything new or interesting comes out, I'll let you guys know, and you can throw it in the show notes there. But that was a long answer, Gentry. Hopefully I won't be as long-winded because we don't have a lot of time. So
No, that was great. Yeah, that helped me understand your connection with the movie for sure. Well, let's just start. We talked about the home video release a little bit. I want to see the trailer for this. I haven't seen it yet. It's on Twisted Sex Volume 20. Have you guys seen the trailer?
You have not. Yeah, no, I have that.
How do they frame the movie? Like, is anything interesting in it?
Sex movie? I mean, yeah, it's a pretty standard sexploitation trailer. There's not any footage in the trailer that isn't in the film, so it doesn't have any alternate takes that I remember.
Okay.
But it's interesting to think of when it came out and the fact that it's in black and white, which is very unusual for that period.
There was actually, I found at least one ad that claimed it was in color.
Liars.
They had to be, yeah. I mean, and I went to Lisa. I'm like, Lisa, what is this? She's like, that can't be. That's only ever been in black and white.
Yeah, it can't be.
Yeah.
That's why I was kind of like, well, is this like a black and white dupe neg? But I don't think it can't be the case. Because, I think this was a Movie Lab thing. And I think it's the original camera negative for this. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Even though it's a DVD-R, it looks good. At least the version I got.
Really, it absolutely does. Yep.
Yeah, it does. Does the DVD-R come with any liner notes? Was there anything written about
Just
it?
Lisa doing Lisa doing like a plot summary. I think saying that Curt Ledger directed She Came on the Bus,
Yeah.
and I think a little bit on Alisha Fontaine. I think that's it.
And I did see in some of the ad mats that, Curt Ledger's name is attached to Francy's. So I'm curious why he didn't put his name on She Came on the Bus if he directed that. Maybe we're
Are
getting
you? You've
the
seen
cart,
the movie.
the cart ahead of the horse.
You know
here.
why he wouldn't put his name on the movie. Are you?
Yeah, that's funny.
I think, I don't know that he directed or wrote, or I don't know what his involvement truly was in She Came on the Bus. I am 100% sure he was involved with it, though. Because, again, like I said, I've been to the house where it was filmed. That was his parents' and or grandparents' house. So that's how I'm convinced he was somehow related to it. Now, where it got, whoever, I don't know who it was, said it was he wrote and directed it or whatever there. It almost feels like someone had been down the same pathway I went down to find the house, and that they put two and two together and maybe came up with that. That's my best guess. Beyond that, maybe this mysterious Peter Jackson, did it or something. And by the way, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but that Peter Jackson is not, the IMDb entry for him cannot be correct.
No, it very often isn't.
Yeah.
No.
But you know what? I'm at the point now where I don't want to correct it because that's my form of gatekeeping. I'm like, well, people can keep claiming that. The people who know that that's incorrect. So that's my Jim Holiday move of keeping certain things not necessarily public. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, IMDb is so bad about people that have the same name that are clearly different people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we just talked about that with Grand Place last week.
Yeah.
And we're going to run into another one of those situations a little bit later when we talk about another mysterious guy.
Well, we're talking about the opening of Francy's Friday here. So what is LPR production?
Well, the L is obviously Ledger, I think. The P and the R, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't found anything else about what they were. I found out where they were, though. At least at least one of their addresses, which wound up being the house it was filmed at. So, which again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. But that house has many secrets to tell, not all of which I have answers for.
Okay. Well, maybe you want to do you want to run through Curtis chronology here? Is that a good place to start?
Yeah.
Tell us what you found about this mysterious Curtis Ledger.
The beginning and end of it is he was born in 1930 and died in 1990, and in between is where all the fun happened, of course. He from New Jersey area. He's one of these guys that I think tried a little bit of everything that interests him. We see a lot of these folks behind the scenes in adult films and underground films, and he definitely fits that mold. He actually let me tell you what Ken Chandler, who's the male star of Francy. I interviewed him a couple of hours worth a few weeks ago, and let me read you what his impression of Curt was. I think that's a good start, actually. And I'm going to quote this. He said, "Curt was a strange man. I don't know how he even got into doing a movie. One of these guys you never knew what he was thinking, a very mysterious guy. I mean, he was nice, he was polite, did whatever we asked." And he reiterated that he was a strange guy like 3 or 4 times there. So that's the intro to Mr. Ledger there. So the stuff he was involved in that I was able to dig up, and this goes back to the early 50s. He was involved in a couple of car dealerships in New Jersey. One of them was called the First Used Car Dealership. The first, I don't know if it was the first in the world. I don't know why he was doing that, but he was definitely a promoter. We can tell that. he had in 1961, he had a company called Curtis Michael Associates. And the guy that was the Michael was Michael Nimitz, and he's going to show up again in a few minutes. And what that Curtis Michael Associates did is they did shopping center sort of Santa Clauses and decorations for parades and things like this. And one of the articles I found from December 61, they had a 34-foot Santa Claus at the Menlo Park Shopping Center, which is now the Menlo Park Mall, and where they do have the better Easter Bunny, by the way. My mind on this went to, well, is this Fun in Balloon Land? Is this somehow related to that?
Right.
The answer is no. I could find no overlap whatsoever, even though I think they were from Pennsylvania, where Ledger also had some footprints in. But I found no connection there, unfortunately. That was going to be great if we did. But 62, he started Curtis G. Ledger Advertising Company, also Sports Leasing Corporation. And in 64, he got involved with the New York World's Fair, the World's Fair that was held in New York. He was, I don't know if he was head of or he was working with the Indonesia Pavilion, which had kind of a sordid history, political history. There was, I think the fair ran 2 years. The Indonesian Pavilion was only open 1 year because of political reasons, and there was a whole thing there. So,
is he doing designing there? What is he doing for it?
I think based on his mechanical inclination, I think it was something to do with the decorations. And I haven't got a real picture of what they had at the Indonesia Pavilion, other than Sukarno was very clear that he didn't want the regular beauty pageant types escorting people around. He wanted very proper Indonesian people doing that. But beyond that, I'm not sure. So I think it was some kind of animatronics, maybe, I'm guessing, or something along those lines.
Okay.
But he's not the only guy that did work there, and we'll come to those in a little bit as well. So then he did the used car lot I mentioned. Then in Philadelphia, he had Ledger Displays, another advertising type firm. Then in 64, he had some kind of legal trouble with his sports leasing and a guy named Philip Stone. That was, I think, his partner. And I mean, it's tempting to think the P and LPR might be Philip, but that doesn't really make sense if he's using Ledger, the last name. So I don't think he was still around at that point. Then in 65, he has, in the 60s, the slot car racing was really popular. So he had this Golden Gear Raceway in Plainfield, New Jersey, and also something called Ledger and Son, which was a hobby shop, which is interesting on two fronts, which is he never had a son that I know of, and he hadn't even yet had his daughter. So I don't know where that name came from. His daughter wouldn't be born for another couple years. And then we get into, she came on the bus, Francy's Friday. Around the same time of Francy's Friday, he's also running a company called LMC, which stood for Ledger Machine Company. And what they did is they built and I think franchised car washes. Okay. And so there's a lot of ads around this time for LWC or LMC for car washes in the New Jersey area and the Pennsylvania area. And a lot of them, again, the address used is the house in Colonia where Francy was filmed. So I'm starting to get the feeling at this point that maybe, Curtis and family were living there at the time. And again, unfortunately, I've not talked to his daughter to confirm that one way or the other yet. So Francy's Friday's filmed. Then we get to some interesting things with Curt. In 74, he shows up in the papers as the guy that turned in this, I guess, fairly infamous doctor that had been caught for tax evasion and had escaped. And I guess there was some, drama in the newspaper about this guy. Well, anyway, I guess he was friends with Mr. Ledger, and Ledger turned him in. So he got in the news for that. Also in 78 and 78, he was in an armed robbery attempt. He wasn't the guy robbing, but he stopped the robber that was doing it. So he became sort of a hero for about a year.
Where was that? Do you know? Was it like a bank? Was it a gas station?
I think it was a store, I'm not positive on that. I'll have to go back to my deep notes on that one, but I'm not sure on that. In 79, though, he was arrested for sort of running a prostitution ring with this guy named Mitchell Wachowski. Now, it looks like Mr. Ledger was let off because there's only one mention that he was arrested for it, and that's it. The rest of the articles and the rest of the story all focus on Wachowski. So I'm thinking there was hopefully some confusion on that. I don't know. Wachowski, though, was an interesting guy. He was, like I said, he was arrested with Ledger in 79. He was arrested again in 79 for running a booking agency for go-go bars and underage girls. So this guy wasn't really great. He'd had another arrest later for running prostitutes, and he also owned a go-go bar in New Brunswick, which is just south of where Francy was filmed. So not a very good guy.
But I think it clear from your research that they were associates at least.
They were associates. They were at least. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like he was walking down the street and got nabbed. Accidentally. He was. Sure. He was related somehow, but to what extent, I don't know. Right.
Right.
In 79, and then also later in 85, there's a couple of articles about him developing a Nighthawk alarm system. So this is an alarm system that would be, tripping. I'm not exactly sure how technically it works, but he's got patents for it and everything. And he evidently had been working on this since the 60s when he had some of that store. That hobby shop back in which was robbed back then as well. So, and I think it's in the 85 article. There's a really good picture of him. So we do have one picture of him that we can go on.
Great.
And then we get to 90, and that's when he passes away. So that at a very high level is Mr. Curtis Ledger.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my opinion, like based on all that information about this kind of character, but what is yours? Who is, I see a journeyman here who's trying to find something to do, something to make money.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Clearly he's good with his hands, probably at making things. I see that, but yeah, I don't have a clear picture of this guy.
Well, the clearest picture I got was from Mr. Chandler, and he's weird.
Yeah.
And mysterious.
Yeah.
But he, he reminds me. You're right. I mean, this journey we just went through is kind of deliberate almost, right? I mean, he starts out in very broad in cars and everything. Then he gets, slot cars even themselves. That's very mechanical and doing the Santa Clauses and stuff like that. And now patenting this alarm system. So I think there definitely was that vision for him. But I think it's also about making money. And I get the impression, I mean, that the 60s were a rat-a-tat-tat of things we just went through, right? That just seems like someone throwing things against the wall, seeing what's going to stick and make him a buck,
Right.
And there's nothing wrong.
And then sex films just happen to be one of those things where it's like, well, these are making money and we can make them very cheaply. But it's so interesting because one of them is obviously made much more cheap than the other.
Absolutely. I think She Came on the Bus was exactly that, though. It was like, let's try this now. There's some, maybe he was at a bar in Plainfield and someone's like, hey, I hear Fred just invested in this nudie film and, made bank on it or whatever. And away we go. It's interesting. It was made cheaply, but there was some budget. There had to be to get folks like Uda and Linda there. Right.
Yes. Right. And bring them out from New York and just hop on the train. Let's come out here. Right.
Yeah.
Hop on the bus.
Yeah, but they didn't come for free. Like I think most of the guys probably did in that film.
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But and beyond that, I mean, again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. But beyond that, he was using his parents' or grandparents' house, so there was no money there, and it was a charter bus that he probably cashed a favor in for the guy down at the bar. That he might have got the idea from, even, or might have been a co-investor, if you will. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Peter Jackson owned the bus company. I don't know.
The conversation during the car ride moves from one thought to another, and finally, a moving bus triggers a new and possibly more exciting thought. Why not get ahead of the bus, stop the bus, get on it, and see what happens from there? What the heck? It's all in the name of fun and games.
Are you ready to talk She Came on the Bus quick?
Yeah, let's do it quick because
let's spend as little time as possible.
I think a long time ago, I was, we were just batting around ideas for films to talk about, me and Casey. And, of course, I'd bring up She Came on the Bus. And he was not having it at all. No. And I mean, I understand. I understand. But I think in this case, it's important to understanding Curtis and where his head is at in making these movies.
I'm viewing it as we have to talk about fluctuations while we talk about In Hot Blood.
Yeah.
Basically. One of those is better than the other. I mean, very different because Francy's Friday is much better than In Hot Blood, but it's similar how like
Yeah,
a
it is
filmmaker who
actually.
can make two films, one is significantly worse than the other. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
like you said that, I mean, Uda, Linda, pretty big names at least. I mean, I don't know how big they were on the scene at that point. What can you say, Casey? Like, is it a big
Well,
get?
not necessarily names. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, like not names weren't really a thing in sexploitation, except
No.
for cases like Marsha Jordan and stuff. There weren't people who you were going to look for their name on a poster when you
Mhm.
went to go see. Yeah, like Marsha Jordan became a brand. That wasn't really a thing in New York. They didn't have
Yeah.
brands. Even like Gigi Darlene and Darlene Bennett. Like, yeah, they're regularly in these movies. You recognize them, but you're not going to go try to find a movie because they're in them.
Yeah.
There was no star system set up. But yeah, at this point, by the time they did She Come on the Bus, they clearly been doing a ton of work, so you would know who they are.
Mhm.
And they're very easy to work with and very popular with producers. So yeah, and good friends too. So if one heard about one project, they might loop
Yeah.
in the other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I think that was the case especially with Linda and Uda. And then Jackie Richards. I mean, she's a pretty big part of that movie as well. So
totally
maybe
forgot about her.
she
Yeah,
came as part of the package as well.
the only guy I think we know is Larry Hunter, who was, of course, in a bunch of Wishman films. And
Right. Okay, so
Gentry's favorite.
where is Larry in that movie?
he's the guy that's wearing the striped shirt. That's the best I can tell you.
Mhm.
He's not the main guy. I thought he was going to be the main
Right.
guy, kind of the guy that does the bus driver in and so forth.
Yeah.
But it's not him. That's not him. It's one
No.
of the other dorky guys. I think he doesn't have a really big role at all, but he's there. I'd use my facial comparison tool to make sure he was in
Really?
that.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
I watched it again recently and I couldn't find him. He's not like part of the main hoodlums, is he? Because there's like 3 main hoodlums. I don't think he's any of the 3.
He's in the house for sure because
He's
that's
in-
where
yeah.
Yeah, I think he might appear
Mhm.
randomly in the house and then he doesn't. I don't know if he goes on the bus with them though.
That's interesting. I haven't watched it close enough.
Yeah.
In forever. Yeah.
Dude.
And I could way back machine my DVD drive and review.
I
and
think
see
we
if
need
I
to
mentioned
I think we need to
'cause-
question this Larry Hunter credit. I think we do.
maybe.
I like the main guy in this movie. He's so funny. I wish I could see him in more stuff. He's got like a certain energy. He's kind of like the little hoodlum guy. You know who I'm talking about.
Absolutely, he's the guy that, like I said, he's the one that shivs the bus driver.
Yeah,
right?
and he does the dance at the end.
Yeah.
That guy.
He had to be a local. Like I think most of the folks in these films that we don't know were. In fact, I've confirmed a few of them were local talent.
Yeah.
New Jersey had an amazing local and regional theater scene back in the 60s, it looks like. I mean, drama clubs, things like, and we'll get to one of the guys when we talk about Francy that was pretty big in that. Michael Nimitz was pretty big, by the way. The guy I mentioned that was in Ledger or Curtis Michael, that firm from the Santa Claus firm from back in the early 60s. He was big in the local theater scene as well. So
Okay.
I'm convinced at least that guy we're talking about, that short guy we were talking about, he had, and I was hoping he was going to pop up in some of just a picture somewhere that I haven't found.
So you found this house and she came on the bus.
I did. Yeah. I'm not going to give the address because I just checked leading up to this and it's now on Google Maps. It's blurred out.
Oh,
So,
really? But it's still standing.
It's still standing, and if you remember when you see the outside, there's this sort of some kind of industrial building next to it. That's still there. That's it's still there. I won't give the name because again, I want to be respectful. People are still living there. And when I went there, I tell you, I so wanted to go around the house and see the back. And I went, nope, this is someone's house. I'm going to stand on the sidewalk. I'm going to take my pictures, and I'm going to go my way. But that neighborhood looks eerily the same. And this is 55, 56, 7 years later, almost 60 years later at this point, right?
Yeah.
And it looks, the trees are bigger, but that's it.
Yeah.
And it had been, again, either Ledger's parents or grandparents. I think his grandmother was the last to live there. So it was a family house. I don't know whether he and his family lived there at all, but it definitely was a Ledger family residence, which is again how I can say undoubtedly he was somehow involved, if not fully behind it. He definitely had a fair stake in the making of the film.
Yeah, I mean that pretty much confirms it. Yeah, I would say.
Beyond that, I mean it's kind of a rougher roughie, I would say. It's and not necessarily in a good way. I don't know if that even is a thing, but It's not a favorite of mine, other than what we've talked about.
The connection. Yeah, I mean, some roughies, like there is an undercurrent of, cartoonish sort of humor. This one is it's pretty straight black. I mean, there's not really any humor, and
there's no humor. It's just mean. I think it's
pretty mean.
I think that's the thing. It's just mean. Like, at least there are certain points in certain roughies where, well, I don't know. I've said on here before, I watch these movies for the women. So, like, typically, I like to see women get there. Women will, eventually come out in the end okay. And in this one, it's just like, it's just so dark and brutal. And it's just not fun. It's not, if a roughie can be fun, it's just, there are levels to roughies, folks. This is bottom of the barrel. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of fun seeing Linda play like one of the boys, one of the hoodlum girls, but I
can see her do that in other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And the Uda
she does
stuff,
it in Curse of Her Flesh.
I don't like the Uda stuff. Like, they treat her so bad. And she's not even like shot very well. Like that scene when she's like, they put like fake tears on her face. I hope they're fake. Where she's like, getting abused on the bus. It's just like,
no, I don't enjoy it. And there's no way in hell I rewatched it before this episode. Because I'm why put myself through that? Right? No, I will only rewatch that under duress, and I wasn't forced to do it for this episode. So,
so that tells you something. If Casey didn't rewatch it before the episode,
it's bottom of the barrel. It's bottom of the barrel. Yeah,
so it's going to be your Clockwork Orange film. Then is what we're saying, right?
Yes, it will be. I will only rewatch it because I have to go through the entire catalog for a letterbox to review everything, and I'll suffer through it at that point. But yeah, I find the stuff about the production much more interesting. The stuff that you're finding about where it was shot and things like that, that's much more interesting than actually sitting through the movie again, which I will. Yeah, I don't want to do.
And if we want to get into it now, I mean, it also allows us to talk a little bit about Linda.
Yeah. What can you tell us about Linda? I know we've been dying to find out what is going on with her.
Yeah. So I didn't find out much more about Linda than we knew. I do, by the way, I don't know, Casey, do you want to you're probably better positioned than me to give the 25-cent version for folks that may not be familiar with her. I don't know what they're doing listening to you guys if they're not, but
I would hope so. Well, yeah, because Linda Boyce was on my Mount Rushmore of sexploitation. Linda Boyce is it's interesting because I love seeing Linda and Uda together because I always consider them like the light and shadow of sexploitation because you have the blonde and the brunette and they're always together and they really mirror each other really beautifully. But Linda was I think she was a dancer first. I think she was a dancer and a model before she became an actress. I'm not sure if she was classically trained. You can't really tell that she is. I think she just had natural talent. And yeah, she was one of the go-to girls and starting from like 66, 67 up until like 71, 70, probably 71 actually. I think that's when she bailed from the industry. Before hardcore. She was not going to do hardcore. Too smart for that.
And she supposedly got married around that time, right? And
yes. Apparently, she married some rich guy, which is what Alex Mann told me, and he was very close to her and was able to confirm with me some details about her life that were accurate. And so I was like, okay, well, this should make finding her easier, and it absolutely is not. So it's very frustrating.
Yeah. I only have one candidate for that marriage, and it's like in 75, which is too late kind of to fit that timeline.
Yeah, I think you found the same person I did. And I was like, could this be? No, it's not. No. Yeah, it didn't work. The ages definitely didn't match for me. Yeah.
In 69 and into the 70s, she started an agency, I guess, a casting agency, which we'd known about, right? Mm-hmm. And I was, I guess I think I'd known that it was called Boyce Stone, but I guess that's not that well known. And it was, I'd always heard she started with some guy that didn't really last that long, and then of course she handed it off to two people that'll show up in a few minutes with the next film, Tally Cochran and Patrick Wright.
Right? Yeah, isn't that weird that both casting agents ended up working for Curt Ledger?
I'm wondering if he still had the phone number, and instead of Linda, it was Tally at the other end.
It was same building. I think she was the same apartment. She just had to go up to that apartment. Yeah,
she was in the apartment next door, is what I remember hearing.
Yes, yeah.
But by the way, I can tell you what apartment that was now, because
you did really good research on that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I found evidence of Boyce Stone, and again, this was new to me. Others may have already gone down this road, but for me, finding actual print evidence of Boyce Stone Productions is what it was given. So, in October, there was a September 29th article by Earl Wilson. Earl Wilson's going to play a role in this later on as well. Are you guys familiar with who Earl Wilson was, by the way?
Yeah, I think I have a book by him. It's like wasn't he like a gossip columnist?
He was a gossip columnist, yes.
Yeah, I have a book by him where actually a book I have of him, there's a whole chapter about Jerry Miller. He interviewed Jerry Miller when she was, that is not the one I have, but I do need that one. That's the one. Yes, that's the one in your left. What is it? The show business something. There's a whole Jerry Miller thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I bought that specifically for the Jerry Miller stuff. Yeah,
I've had this book since I was probably 14, maybe earlier, 13 or 12. And he was one of the first kind of visions of New York I had. And he, if I have to go back and figure out how I became who I am, it's probably that book and Earl Wilson that helped in some part shape that. So to find that he's the guy that announced the Boyce Stone agency was kind of a neat little thing for me going back to my childhood. Yeah. But it's going to get better with Earl Wilson before we're done with this thing. So in September, he announces, and I mean, where my notes went, in September 29th, actually 69, he announces cover girl Linda Boyce opened her own Boyce Stone model agency. And there's a picture right next to it of Linda, and scantily clad, of course, there. Then in October, another announcement, not as part of any column. It looks like a paid announcement, actually, in a New York paper. New talent agency arrives. Comic Jackie Mason will serve as host tonight at a celebrity party to introduce Boyce Stone Productions. Talks a little bit about that. And it mentions Hal Stone. So now we've got Mr. Stone's first name, Hal Stone, and actress model Linda Boyce. And it gives the address and the apartment number.
Ow.
So, and I'm going to, it was the Camelot building where this was, and we'd known that. And now we know that the Boyce Stone agency was in apartment 5E of the agency.
Nice.
Okay. So is this the apartment where those photos were taken? That
it is. Yes.
Okay.
It's the very apartment where, we've got, in fact, I did an article on my blog, a couple articles about it. There's a zebra print wall.
Yes.
That's very noticeable. So there's a picture, a set of Laura Cannon getting shot there. Linda herself had many spreads that were shot there. Return of the Secret Society has scenes that were shot in that apartment because you can see that. And I also understand a lot of other films used it as a location as well. So apartment 5E is for us anyway, a very historical
mecca, right? Sexploitation mecca.
Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, then that means that Tally and Patrick were in the apartment next door. I don't know if that was 5D or 5C or whatever the other one would be, but it was. By the way, I also found another familiar name of a guy that lived in the building. I don't think he was on the same floor, but when I was trying to track some of this information down, I discovered that C. Davis Smith lived in the building as well.
Oh, really?
Really? Oh, good old Chuck lived there? Oh, I had no idea. Wow.
It's not up for rent or for sale, but if you guys are interested, the apartment is appraised at a little over $1 million right now. So
that is a tough building to get into. Yes. Yes. I've looked at the rent. I think the cheapest rent in there, I forget how much it is. It's more expensive than what I'm paying here because I was considering moving in there for fanboy reasons, but no chance in hell. No chance in hell.
We are, quite frankly, a lesbian organization dedicated to the proposition that women are superior beings. Men have no place in our lives, not in our sex lives anyway.
I want to ask you about Hal Stone, but first I want to ask you, Shawn, who do you think Peter Woodcock is?
I have no idea.
That's what everybody says. Nobody wants to even guess.
It's not Roberta, and that's all I can say. I haven't looked into it further because I don't like those films. So
it's a great name, but I have no idea who it's behind. Who's behind.
Yeah.
But the fact that Linda is somehow connected to whoever made those films, clearly it's shot, parts of it are shot at her apartment.
Right.
I think we can sort of like narrow the field down a little bit.
Maybe. I mean, no, I mean, because no, I don't think necessarily you can. As we're just hearing about Curt Ledger and the fact that he was not in film, just kind of got into film for some random reason and then got out a couple years later. That I think that Peter Woodcock is probably an example of that. It's somebody who was like, I want to make something quick. And then Linda Boyce was a go-to casting person. She had an apartment. You know, I think that's why she probably opened that casting agency. She was a go-to person, I think, very helpful for producers in situations like that. So naturally, she wanted to get involved with more helping with productions.
Yeah.
Smart cookie.
And make some money with it too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very smart girl.
So tell us about the other half of this, Hal Stone.
Yeah.
Hal Stone, yeah. So now I had a name, and that was enough to put me on a frenzied search for who Hal Stone was. And it's unfortunately a not uncommon name, especially for men born in that time period. Hal is sort of short for Harold, so Harold was far more used back in the 30s and 40s when he would have been born, I would expect. So there are a number of candidates. The first that I found was, and the most mind-blowing, if it had been the right one, was Hal Stone. That was a child actor back in the 30s. And was the first Jughead, voice of Jughead, on the Archie Comics radio program back in the 50s. And he stayed in acting, and he did a bunch of stuff. He passed away, I think, in 2009. But it became clear fairly quickly that wasn't the right Hal Stone. The next guy was a lot closer, I thought. He was a guy that had he came out of World War II and became a comedian, and he'd created this sort of sad sack Beetle Bailey sort of pre-Gomer Pyle character that he would do stand-up as, and it was very popular. He cut a few albums, comedy albums, as this guy back in the late 40s, but by the mid-50s, that it kind of gotten old and stale, and he didn't have new material, so he started doing whatever. So I'm thinking, this sounds kind of like the guy. And I found out this guy died in, I think, 74, 75. By that time, he was doing stand-up on cruise ships. And he died on the Queen Elizabeth, QE, the QE2, I think, in the Bahamas. So he died while he was, on a booking in the Bahamas. And the only reason I bring this up is the ship, I guess the captain called his wife up in New York and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, your husband has died. Where would you like us to send the body?" And she said, "Oh, well, Hal always wanted to be buried at sea, so just take care of it."
Yeah, saves her some money.
But that's true. Yeah, but as fun as that would have been, that's not our Hal. So then I started circling around this character that was really an LA character named Hal Stone. And the more I found, well, actually, let me back up here. I skipped a little bit here. I was looking in newspapers in New York for Hal Stone, trying to find mentions of this guy, and I found a handful, all of them in Earl Wilson articles or columns.
Yes.
And there's one in which he's talking about this. He names Hal Stone, and he says he's, I got it written down here, a goateed and big-bellied man. He was an agent of exclusively nudes, he said, and he was always bugging Earl to, interview some of his girls. And I'm like, this has to be our guy, right?
Gotta be.
And he said, when Earl said, to get him out of my office one day, I just said, "All right, Hal, send me over a nude receptionist." And 2 days later, a blonde Scandinavian-looking girl walks in, takes off her overcoat, completely nude, sits down, starts typing. And, he's in shock. His real receptionist is in shock. His assistant is in shock. Finally, he walks over and says, "Ma'am, what are you doing?" She's like, "Oh, Hal sent me over. He said you wanted a nude typist." He's like, "Oh, okay. That's funny. Get out of here." He puts the jacket over, shoos her away. But he looks at the paper she'd been typing. There was just one word repeated over and over again on the sheet of paper. And it's something Francy tells her mother at the beginning of the film. The word "fuck." All she typed on the thing. And I'm reading that and I'm thinking, I know this story. I've read this story. That story was in the book that Earl Wilson had written that I got when I was a kid, basically.
Wow.
So I have basically known about Hal Stone for 50 years almost now.
He was
40
hiding right under your nose.
Right under my nose. But the story gets better because later on, and Earl Wilson these books are just basically rehashes of his articles, and he would rehash his articles in his articles as well. So a couple years later, I found another mention of this story and of Hal Stone, but it's the rest of the story. We find out who that blonde was. So he said, I got a phone call from a lady that has just, in the news right now as part of this big scandal with prostitution and big names and so forth. And she says, Mr. Wilson, I'd like you to write my story for me. He's like, well, thank you very much, but why did you choose me? And she said, well, because we know each other. He's like, we do? He's like, yes. You remember a few years ago that Hal Wilson sent me over to be your receptionist. He's like, oh, okay. Now I obviously remember who you were. Well, that lady was Xavier Hollander.
Oh, no. My gosh.
What?
The happy hooker herself?
Wow. Okay.
So at one point, Hal Stone was the agent for the happy hooker, which opens up a lot. Right?
Yeah. Well, then I want to think that he made a lot of money because her story was everywhere and her books were everywhere.
Yes.
I haven't had a chance to go and look at her books, though, to see if he's actually mentioned. I haven't had a chance to track one down to do that. But so I'm convinced at this point this is the right guy. I mean, everything, all of the boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So now I got to find where he went and where he came from. So let's talk a little bit about where he came from. I haven't found an awful lot, but he did work for Joe Franklin. He was a booker and a talent scout for Joe Franklin. That is clear. And in fact, Franklin mentions him in at least one of his books that he wrote. Speaks very highly of Hal Stone, said he trusted him implicitly. And he turns out Stone was the only booker. He was the main booker, it seems like. And he's the only one that was actually paid a salary. All the other bookers, guys, I'm sure they were paid in like tickets or other fringe benefits. So he was the only one that actually made money working for Joe Franklin. And the story is that one of the people that Hal Stone discovered, and I say that with air quotes, is Richard Pryor. He supposedly discovered him down in the Village and booked him on Joe Franklin's show, and that was his first, on-air thing. Now, I've gone through several of Richard Pryor's biographies, his autobiography, and there's no mention of Joe Franklin being on Joe Franklin, a Hal Stone. There's no hint of a Hal Stone character. So It's a good story. It may be true. There's not a lot of evidence that doesn't come from Hal or Joe to back that up, though.
Right. Interesting. Okay.
So before that, before the early 60s, there's really nothing I found on Hal Stone except from him, where he later on tells that his father was a stunt pilot, his mother was a wing walker. They both died. I don't know whether it was stunt related or not. And he grew up in an orphanage. That's his version of his early life. I've not found any stunt walker or stunt pilot that fits this criteria. I have looked, but there's still a lot more ground to cover there. So I get the feelings Hal Stone might not have been his real name, but I'm not sure. Again, Hal Stone was not an uncommon combination there. So that's where he came from. You guys ready to find out where he went?
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So in the early 70s, he started going to LA. I don't know if he was bi-coastal or if he was exclusively in LA in the early 70s. I do know that by 81, he was on the West Coast full time, and that's where he stayed for the rest of his life. And he was still an agent. He was still booking acts. Now, I don't know, one act that I know from 81 was a Russian hypnotist. Just because it got written up, right? But beyond that, I'm not sure what I don't know if he was still doing nudes. I don't know if he was doing, actresses, actors, or just crazy acts. But it was clear he was still doing something in the entertainment booking and promotion industry. In the 80s, though, his story starts picking up steam. He gets involved with Jackie Stallone, Sylvester Stallone's mother. And the post-Glow, Gorgeous Lady of Wrestling, post-career when she was doing the Foxy Boxing. And he was basically her partner in those businesses and all of those shows and videos and tours that would do all the Foxy Boxing. And there's commercials with him, saying we got it all the way from G-rated for the family all the way to whatever you want, that sort of stuff. And he was also involved, if you guys remember Rocky V, there was a lawsuit against Jackie and Hal Stone from a guy that was an old boxer and had given them, the two of them, a script based on his life to look at. And his contention was Rocky V was in large part based on that script, and he got no credit or no money for that. So he sued him, and I think he won, actually, or maybe it was settled out of court or something there. But so Hal Stone was very, if you will, linked to Jackie Stallone during that period, which is interesting because this is where Greg Javer comes back in, believe it or not. Greg was very involved with Jack Descent,
right?
Who had actually worked with Jackie during this time on her, what is it, the Dionne Warwick type stuff, but the psychic stuff.
Psychics, yes, psychic Friends Network or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. So that was Jackie's other sort of thing she was doing. So Jack was behind that with Jackie, and Greg has like all of the master tapes for that, I believe there. So it's interesting how these things sort of start. So if Greg was still alive, he would have had a cow whenever I found out that Hal Stone and Jackie Stallone were together there. So Hal Stone in the 90s was still around. He was a regular at the Rainbow Bar and Grill on Sunset Strip. There's a plaque with his name on it at the bar claiming he's the Emperor of the Rainbow. He was a self-promoter. He went on I don't know the name of the show, but it's sort of like a cross between Oprah and Jerry Springer. It was a kind of, I think, an LA show. And it was Hot Women Who Like Fat Guys. It was kind of the title I gave it there. And the hot women were obviously stripper types. And one of them was Hal Stone's girlfriend. And then the twist was when another woman comes out and claims she was also his girlfriend, and fight ensues and all that sort of stuff. So he was still doing stuff. He was in Penthouse not long before he passed away. It noted that he was a regular at the Bunny Ranch in Nevada. But he only went because he liked the atmosphere. He didn't go for the sex. Sure. It was just the atmosphere. He liked hanging out.
Sure.
And he passed away in 2019. So we just missed him yet again. Maybe not just by this 7 years ago, but
wow. Well, that's a full life for Hal Stone. I wonder if he would even remember Linda Boyce after what he lived.
How would you not remember Linda Boyce? Come on now.
Her hair is amazing. How do you forget that?
He's like the type of guy that would remember every woman he ever saw.
Yes. Well, actually, it's interesting that the Earl Wilson connection also just makes me remember the fact that Hal wanted him to, do stuff on his women. That whole thing on Jerry Miller is in that book, and Jerry Miller is in one of the Peter Woodcock movies with Linda Boyce. So I feel like Jerry Miller then must have been, when she wasn't a Warhol girl, must have been one of Linda and Hal's girls when she was doing sexploitation stuff.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. By the way, I did find one other interesting thing on Hal. He did get married, supposedly, and this was in an Earl Wilson column. He got married in 1970 to this actress model named Ingrid Rowland. Does that name ring? It doesn't ring.
Ingrid does. There was a blonde. No, that's Ingrid Swenson I'm thinking of. Who was in Two Girls for a Madman.
Only one other mention of an Ingrid Rowland, and that was 2 months before that, yet again in an Earl Wilson column, where she and Alpha Blair were playing miniature ping pong at some game salon in the 70s, West 70s or whatever. So Alpha Blair is kind of a known name. I don't know if it rings any bells for you guys, but she's still around. And I reached out to her to say, hey, do you remember someone named Ingrid Rowland? She hasn't got back to me yet, so I don't know if she will or not. But I have got that thread out there to see, hey, did you remember this person? And if so, probably not, if she only played ping pong once, 55 years ago.
Right. But it sounds like that might have been a gig that she might have been on, once again, represented by that agency. So she might still even remember that agency, even if she wasn't with them that long. She might still remember something. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. You definitely. You always have that in mind, Shawn. You're good like that. Like every single thread could potentially lead somewhere interesting.
Yeah, and that's why I never get anything done.
What were you doing?
I was down by the lake, under the willows.
What were you doing?
Nothing. I was studying.
Well, so what's the connection to Linda Boyce? Did you find out anything about how they met?
No. I mean, you basically got my full story on Hal Stone rather right now. There's still, there's still a ton of questions this raises. But I think we've got some traction, and we'll see what we can find, and getting this out there to the masses. The dozen or so folks like us that are gonna. I know that guys. I know what you're doing. You're already on your phones looking for this stuff. So, let us know what you find, please.
But that's the curious part to me. Yeah, it's like how Linda got involved with this character and what their partnership was. In terms of who did what in this in this company that they were apparently joint owners of. I mean, that's how it looks.
That's what it seems like. Yeah. I mean,
and her name was first too. I like that too. Boyce Stone. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he could have been her agent, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, who knows? Who knows how they got together? If I had to guess what the breakup, what the sort of who did what was, she probably got all the talent, and he probably got all the jobs. Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of what makes the most sense, obviously.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a Bunny Yeager situation, possibly, where people would trust women models and strippers and people in the city would trust Linda because she knows the business. She also knows what the money you could get, what producers are looking for, what stuff you don't have to do if you're not comfortable. Like, I think it's good to have a woman working as an agent in this industry in New York, especially New York.
Especially when you look and act like Hal Stone. And there's, like I said, there's videos. I'll send you guys links. You can put them in the show notes. Someone from the Rainbow Grill did a memorial video of him, and basically all it is he was on a news show about his overweight eating, which he loved to do. He's not going to stop. There was the segment from the that show with the girlfriends that I told you about. And there's a few other things from the wrestling, and so they just basically they did no editing. They just put them together. But that's great because it's out there and it saves me from having to come up. So someone did that, and it's on Vimeo. So Vimeo. So I tried to contact them, say, hey, I'd like to know more about you obviously knew Hal. I'd like to talk to you. I haven't got anything back from them yet either. But I'll share the video with you guys, and you can understand, Casey, why what you just said is even so much more important with a guy like him.
Yes. Well, and then it makes me wonder, we know the general consensus is that Linda married either she married someone wealthy or someone she'd been in a relationship with and left the business to Tally. Hal didn't marry Linda, did he? Did you find any evidence that he married someone named Linda around that time?
No, I've not found any evidence. There is a picture of Ingrid, who, again, it says he did, but it's one of, it's on newspaper.com, and it's so, you can't tell. But
interesting.
It's an obvious thought, right? But I just don't feel like, I just don't. I mean, I would honestly hate if that's the case for Linda's sake.
I would too. I feel Linda's smart. Linda's smarter than that. I feel like she's smarter than that. Someone who is able to go into this kind of work while still being an actress. That's not done by idiots. Like she knew what she was doing. She's too smart for that. Yeah.
And maybe I should walk back a little bit, unless it was true love. I mean, there is that, right? But again,
Gloria Leonard ended up with Bobby Hollander for some reason, right? And she's way smarter than that too. I don't know why she was with him, and even her daughter doesn't know why she was with him. Yeah, I don't know. Love. The heart wants what the heart wants in weird scenarios. Yeah.
Well, that's a tangent around. She came on the bus. Should we talk about Francy's? Anything else?
Francy.
Sean? Just sort of the release history, right?
Yeah.
The earliest I found was April '69, and the latest I found was June '75 in Texas.
Yeah,
Jesus.
and actually, that Texas theater is also the last I found for Francy when we get to that. So it's interesting, these two.
Really?
I don't know if it was the true final screening for both of them, but it's interesting that at least as far as I've found, they both ended at the same, and it's in McAllen, Texas, wherever the hell that is. So interesting. It appears they both might have had a similar ending.
Yeah.
That's so weird. Black and white movies playing as late as 75 is wild.
Well, Francy was 77 when that played.
Oh, it went even later. That's even crazier. Wow, interesting.
And the film, it was the bottom of the ticket. The top of the ticket was, you'll love this, Sweet Pumpkin.
Oh, what? Oh my God. That's crazy. That's really crazy. Wow. I don't. Yeah, looking at some of these bills when we do these release histories and stuff. It really is mind-boggling what some theater people are thinking and what the audiences must have thought. To sit there, CJ Lang deep throating John Holmes, and then a certain amount of time later, Alisha Fontaine coming of age with a guy writing songs about her. Very different movies.
And I also wonder, like, if audience members were really aware of the distinction. Like, okay, this is a hardcore movie, this is a softcore movie. I don't know if they really were. If they're just kind of sitting through it, like, it's all sex. I mean,
I think they might have felt hoodwinked by 77.
By 77, yeah, maybe.
At least hoodwinked, or it could have been the film to clear out the theater.
Yeah.
Or also we have to remember that a lot of times no one was watching the movies on the screen.
Yes, exactly.
I keep forgetting that because I'm not the target audience. That's correct. Because I wouldn't be doing that. Right, exactly. I'd be watching very diligently the screen.
Especially if it's a drive-in, then yeah, like,
true. That's true.
Stuff is going on.
I was a little older then, but still too young to see what was going to happen that night.
I can feel it. Oh yeah. Feel it coming. Oh, it's right inside of
Francy's Friday.
Yeah, let's get to the main thing now that we've spent an hour talking about that.
I know. Well, actually, I wanted to say I had never seen this. I had bought the DVD-R and I'd never watched it. And so I was like, this is perfect. I can find it. There aren't that many movies that we've done on the podcast so far that I have been first-time watches for me. So I watched it this morning and I was just like, first of all, Alisha Fontaine, I mean, I love her anyway. Really good in this. And yeah, I really liked it. I'm so glad you picked it because it finally gave me the incentive to finally watch it. Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, I know in the intro there, I kind of compared it to Secret Places. I think there is a similar feeling there. There's sort of a melancholy there. I also mentioned, like, is this a dark comedy? I don't know. What do you think, Casey or Sean? I think it.
Yeah, what do you think, Sean?
I think that there's attempts at dark humor. I haven't thought of it as a dark comedy, but I can see where you're coming from on that. It's probably worth a rewatch to get that, because I didn't rewatch it all the way through leading up to this. I rewatched probably all of it 3 or 4 times, but not as a sit down. I had to dissect certain scenes and so forth. So it is time for me to go back and give it an actual run through.
Yeah, especially all the stuff with her mother at the beginning. Yes. It's just so over the top with her injury and her in the wheelchair falling down the stairs.
But that actress, though, is so well cast because initially I thought from a distance, the camera distance, I thought it was Alisha Fontaine, just with her hair up in a different style. Very well cast. Who looks like she could be her mother,
her mom, yeah.
Which does not happen in these films. You don't really have that kind of close family casting. Yeah. And we still don't know who she was either, right, Sean? Like that most of the cast on this is kind of a mystery.
Yeah, we don't. I have one of these sort of, I think, fake memories that 3-4 years ago I had identified her. It's nowhere in my notes, though. I haven't been able to find anything on that. So I think I'm misremembering that. I hope I am, because if I lost that information, I'm never going to forgive myself. But yeah, she's one of the many unknowns that are in this film. I did identify the father, though, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, give us a quick overview then, Sean. Do you want to do that, of the plot of Francy's Friday?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's all going to happen on one day, which I don't think it does. It's it's a clever name that doesn't
multiple Fridays.
Yeah. So Francy is a coming of age girl that's going through the whole sexual thing. She's got an overbearing mother. When she was young, she sort of saw her mother basically having an orgy when her father was out of town. On one, which she had multiple times, it seems like. Every time he left town, she would have these same guys over. And on one of those, her mother, they tripped and she fell, and she basically, hurt herself to where she was in a wheelchair the rest of her life. And eventually, honestly, it's been a few years. So Gentry, help me out on this. Yeah. Does the mother commit suicide, or was that an accident that happened?
Yeah, she was reaching. Really?
I think she does.
She was reaching down to grab the cigarette lighter, and then she fell down the stairs, I thought, in her wheelchair.
I thought she did it. I thought she defiantly did it. is what I recall. I just watched it this morning. I thought she did do it deliberately. She kills the dog first. Yeah, she kills the dog first.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, maybe that's why I was thinking it was a suicide, right?
No, that scene is awkward though, yeah, because she finds her mom at the bottom of the stairs, but then she sees that there's smoke coming out of the garage and she goes in there, but her mom's not in the garage. Like that would have been the suicide. If you're going to commit suicide, why don't you just, huff some fumes in the garage? But no, it's the dog that she kills in the garage.
Right.
Yeah, it's a confusing. But her father had already died. I guess I skipped over that, right?
Yeah,
her father
he's an alcoholic.
Yeah. And so Francy's left on her own. I guess she's still like a teenager, supposedly at that point. That she's young anyway, right? Yeah. Well, I guess before her mother dies, she's also had this whole, gangbang with some boys at the airport and gotten in trouble. And she has that scene that you allude to, Gentry, at the beginning of the show with her talking about sex and knowing people and so forth and so on.
In a biblical way, yes.
That is a really good line. Yeah. Yeah. She's great.
And along the way, she meets, and I forget his character's name, but she meets Ken Chandler. He's the guy that played the main character, who's kind of a musician, kind of, a regular sort of late 60s kind of guy. And he definitely has the hots for her, pursues her, finally, gets with her. When then we find out that he's also living with a woman, another person who immediately knows what he's done. And she has that one scene. That's Holly Conover, has that one scene, and she's gone.
Really good scene. Yeah, I like that scene.
It is. And I've tracked her down. She is from Florida. She's still down here. She was a beauty pageant queen type for one of the counties in southwest Florida. Her father was a county commissioner, so one of these types. So it's kind of, that scene is a little bit interesting that someone like that would just go topless just so freely on. She was in a couple other films later in the 70s, but since I guess the late 70s, it looks like she's been heavily in the real estate market in Florida and very successful at it. So she leaves the Kenny, and the rest of the film is really about Francy and Kenny sort of having this relationship. Francy is very sexual. She has her dalliances. They have pool parties. They have sex parties, it seems like. By the way, that one scene where the couple go to the bedroom and basically get it on, and the people are walking by the hallway looking in on them, and Alisha and Kenny are one of them. I get the impression that whoever those two actors and actresses were in that bedroom scene didn't get the memo that this was softcore.
Yes, I thought the exact same thing. I said, okay, they had to edit around this, I think. Yeah, it is very graphic. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's definitely some there's some motions that are like, okay, that wasn't tucked away.
Yeah, it's not the like humping the leg type of softcore. Yeah,
no,
you can tell.
It's
by
not like
angles.
the rest of the movie. The rest of the movie isn't like that. So it's just kind of like, oh, this joke definitely goes into X territory. I could see this getting an R otherwise. Yeah.
And it kind of ends on, I guess you used the word melancholy, a melancholy note. I mean, it's sort of like it just sort of. It ends basically.
Well, I mean, it's a really sweet ending. Where they're having that. Just like a very frank conversation about their relationship together. Like, do we want to have an open relationship, which they were kind of like playing around with for a while? And, it's a really sweet movie. Yeah. I really liked it.
Yeah. That long shot on the fireplace.
Yeah.
With that song is really good. It reminded me of like the end of a Roland movie where it's just like, okay, you have to kind of, you have to work through this while what we just experienced before you see the end. Yeah.
So all of that the guitar music was Kenny Chandler. That was Kenny Chandler.
I was going to ask if that was really him. And that's really him singing, right?
It is. Yeah.
Because you sent us a clip of Kenny singing, right?
Yeah.
That was also Kenny, right?
Yeah, that's definitely Kenny. Yeah. So talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about Kenny.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. So I got in contact with him, and we talked a few weeks ago for over 2 hours. And he's 85, I think now, but still very much around. still very active. He lives in Nevada now, still doing, still writing, recording. He's doing videos now. I sent the two of these guys. One of them, maybe we can put some of those in the notes.
Mm-hmm.
A link to those. So he has an incredible life story, and I'm only going to scratch the surface today on that. But he was born in the 30s in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. By the time he was 13, he discovered he liked singing. He had a great voice, he was told. So he started singing that early in school stuff. In high school, he was a basketball star, track star, and he had groups. He got into singing groups. He had a threesome that when they graduated high school, got a recording contract in Philadelphia. So right out of high school, he was recording with these guys. That didn't last too long, though. They did record some songs that you can find out there. They did tour, but the other two guys, one of them got married, the other one joined the Army, I think. And so Kenny headed to New York, and he wasn't born Kenny Chandler. He was born Kenny Bolognese. But when he got to New York and he got signed there, that's where Chandler, he took the name Kenny Chandler, which he still goes by today. And all through the 60s, he was writing songs, he was recording, he was touring. In the mid-60s, he lost his voice. And Burt Bacharach, actually, the famous music guy, was the guy that got him in contact with Marlene Dietrich's doctor, of all people. And that guy helped him, and he wound up, after about a year, he got his voice back and picked up where he'd left off, recording and so forth there. He toured with everybody. I mean, Freddie Cannon, Bobby Vinton, Dionne Warwick. Another name that he toured with, and this is my daughter's favorite, one of her favorite guys, and he just passed away yesterday, actually, Neil Sedaka.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, I got to ask Kenny about Neil Sedaka for my daughter, and I told him he was one of my daughter's favorite. He's like, yeah, Neil. I didn't like him.
Don't tell your daughter that.
That's exactly what I said. I'm like, maybe I won't tell him. He said they did not get along. He did not think highly of Neil Sedaka at all. In fact, I think he said he nearly came to blows with him at least one time. So,
wow.
But
kind of a diva.
What kind of music was he playing on these tours? Is he solo? Is he with a full band?
It was so. I mean, there's backing, of course, but it's primarily him, and then you have a backing band, I think. And you know, it's you can follow his sort of style through the early '60s, which was really doo-wop, early rock and roll, you know, and then it gets more. It follows the trends, I would say, throughout the '60s and the '70s. There, he was also writing jingles for commercials. Started that in the 60s. He got really involved with CBS. He was actually on a soap opera called Edge of Night for a time. Yeah. And he got to know one of the big wigs at CBS through the Edge of Night, I believe, engagement. And he was writing jingles for CBS. And in 73, 74, I think was the first year, he actually wrote the promo jingle for the entire network. Now, back in the 70s, especially, every year it would be a big thing where they would announce their fall lineup and they would, you know, really promote themselves as the network, right? So he came up with the tagline and he came up with the theme song for CBS for that entire season. The next year, the same guy's like, "Hey, Kenny, I want you to do it again. Give me five options and I'll choose one." So he gives him 5, he chooses one. And the guy's like, "Okay, Kenny, this time you're going to be in these." So, and for all the other years, I found stuff. For this year, I've not really found a good video of him. But in 74, 75, for that season, he again wrote the entire campaign, wrote the music, recorded the music, and was in the promos as a troubadour. Something it was kind of the idea they were going for. And he won an award. Him and the guy that did it with him won a major advertising award or whatever for that year. He's been in some movies, and he was in Tammy and the T-Rex, which I know you put in the show notes there. I asked him about that. I asked him if he remembered Buck Flowers, who was also one of our smutty favorites guys.
Yes. Love him. Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't think so. Then he's like, was he kind of a goofy guy? I'm like, yeah, that would have been Buck Flowers. He's like, yeah. I never talked to him or anything, but I remember him being kind of a goofy guy. So
yeah, I don't think they had any scenes together. So
I don't think
might not have remembered him, but
yeah. Yeah, but he apparently did. So he like I said, he's still around. He's done voiceover work fairly recently for cartoons and so forth. Some American versions of some anime stuff. Look, I'm only scratching the surface. Honestly, we could do 2 hours like I did with him. We could do 4 hours on this guy. There's a book that needs to be written about this guy.
Yeah.
I'm not even telling you the Sidney Poitier connection or anything like that. So
Okay.
Well, so clearly music's a big part of his life, and it was then. Is that part of the reason you think he got cast in this?
He really wanted to be an actor, and I guess I will go into the Sidney Poitier thing a little bit because it is pertinent to that. Sidney Poitier was always one of his favorite actors, and when he was living in New York, he would have lunch at this restaurant across from Carnegie Hall a lot. And he got to know the waitresses there, and they got to talking about Sidney Poitier one day, and they said, hey, he comes in here sometimes. And Kenny said not 10 minutes later, he came in there and sat down, and they got to talking. And they got to be kind of friendly and would see each other a little bit around town after that. And Sidney got him in contact with Sidney Poitier's acting coach. So this is when Kenny really wanted to, try his hand at acting. So a year later, he's walking down the street somewhere in New York, and he sees Poitier walking, and he hadn't seen him in a while. And they're like, "Hey, how you doing?" And he's like, "Hey, you still remember me?" He's like, "Sidney, it's only been a year." It's an important phrase for a minute here. And he's like, "So what have you been doing the last year?" He's like, "Well, I'm still with your acting coach." And Poitier said, "Well, if it's a year in and you're still with him, you must have something." So that kind of was a good. I mean, Sidney Poitier, come on, telling you must have something. 30 years later, he's living in L.A. He's going to dinner one night, goes in the restaurant, and Poitier's sitting there. And their eyes meet. Poitier points at him, goes over, they hug each other, and he's like, "Hey, Sidney, it's only been 30 years." Going back to that. So he was trying his hand at acting already before this. He had an agent. Actually, he said he had 4 or 5 agents. Kind of, he would take whatever would come along. So he wasn't exclusive to one agent. And this is where it gets a little fuzzy on what happened when. And I didn't have time to go back and get clarity from him before we started the day. But either his agent, either he was already with Alisha before the movie, but more likely he met Alisha through the movie. And they might have shared the same agent. Is kind of what it sounds like, because it's pretty clear they probably met in this agent's office. And he said he was just floored whenever he saw her the first time, right? Yeah. And so the agent called him up and said, "Hey, this guy from New Jersey, Curt," he said, this is what Kenny said. He's like, "This guy from New Jersey, his name's Curt Ledger, called me up and says, can you send me some headshots of a man and a woman for this film I want to make?" Told him what kind of film it was. So he sent, among others, Kenny and Alicia's over. And he said, Curtis, said that when he saw Alisha, he just fell in love. Like, there was no question she was not going to be the one he chose. Kenny, he liked, but he wanted to meet him. So they went out to New Jersey, met Ledger the first time. Ledger liked what he looked like in person, signed him up. So that's how they got involved. Again, I'm the version I tend to think is more accurate is they met that way. They got to know each other on the film. And he said she was batty. She was really kind of all over the place, sort of, kind of crazy-ish, not crazy, but crazy-ish, if you will. And he kind of pushed through that when he got to know her and kind of found the real her. And they eventually fell in love. They, after the film was over, he said he went to her apartment in New York, and it was a one-room junk apartment, is the way he described it. He was like, "How can you live?" He's claustrophobic. He couldn't stay in there. So she wound up moving in with him, and they were together for a few years, and living together in his apartment up in the 80s on 2nd Avenue in the 80s for a few years. Now, take a little bit of an aside here. That apartment that was his up around 2nd Avenue and I think 86, the corner, I think that's where it's at, was used for a film around that time while they were living there. The Prisoner of 2nd Avenue.
Oh my God, you're kidding. I love that movie.
That's Kenny's apartment.
Oh my God, really? Wow. That's a great apartment.
So they lived together for a few years, but she was like he said, she was still kind of crazy. He said, I got to know her crazy brothers and her mother. She was really crazy, I think was the quote I have from him. But he's saying this in a good way, right? And sort of, they were crazy, but And finally, they, I'm not going to get. He gave me a lot of details. I'm not going to get into those on air here, but
Sure.
they did eventually break up, and she moved out. She one story I forgot to tell while they were together, and he used to use this as an illustration of how giving she was, how kind and giving she was. Even though she was crazy, she was still a very, very good person, if you will. They were walking down the street, and she had this bracelet on, and they ran into someone that she kind of sort of knew. And they got to talking, and the lady said, "Hey, I really love your bracelet." And Alisha just took it off and gave it to her like it was, a gift there. And I got to thinking, and I did reach back out to him on this. I said, well, there's a story about Alisha that she had gotten a diamond bracelet worth several $1,000s from the Prince of Kuwait. This is one of those Earl Wilson sort of type, placement. And is there any chance that could have been that bracelet? Because that could explain why. Also, she's like, well, here, you can have it, because she didn't actually earn it. She didn't buy it or anything. He's like, I've heard that story, but I can't tell you whether it was that bracelet or not. So I like to think it was, though.
Yeah.
So they broke up. He ran into her a few years later in New York. They had a cordial conversation. Then several years later, after he was in LA, they got put back together. I'm going to put it that way. It did not end well that time at all. Very kind of nasty. And he hasn't talked or seen or heard about her since then. So unfortunately, that story did not have a happy ending for the two of them. But he's he's married to someone now, and he does have a happy, well, not ending, but he has a happy to this point. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Oh, that's so basically. So it sounds like they were dating when she was like in Teenage Tramp and her other stuff that she was in around that time, because that would have been early 70s.
Yeah, it would have to be. Yeah, so it would be at least from 71 for Francy, and it sounded like a few years. So probably 74. I'm thinking 75 period.
Okay,
maybe.
Interesting. That's very interesting. I mean, that definitely, it's something that I think of when I watch. I'm like, learning that, it will make me think about other things about her when I'm watching those films.
I think you can see. Yeah, you can see a little of the craziness come through, and like French Quarter. Yeah, she's a little off kilter in that certain scenes.
Yeah,
it's interesting on French Quarter, especially. It's in the late 60s, leading into Francy. You see her showing up in these columns. Obvious placements by her agent, most likely. Maybe Hal and Linda. I don't know at that point, but it's Earl's one of the guys that's doing it. So, and then she has Francy. She has The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight. She has one or two other films around that time. Then there's kind of a lull. And then, like around French Quarter time, it's like she's reintroduced, and she starts showing up big time again. She was in Seamus and a few other films there, so she's almost got like two parts to her kind of short career there. But she does have a long enough career to have really two different eras of it.
Yeah. That's why when I was looking at her career, and watching her films, I was thinking about Monica Gale. I feel like they're very similar career
two very distinctive separate halves. Yes.
But plus they also are just two gorgeous, talented women that really never got a really big break.
No. Even with leads. Yeah. Cause I mean, Alicia's the lead in this and Teenage Tramp. Very actually similar roles. Very similar kind of roles in those.
A little bit, yeah.
But yeah, I've always loved her. I've always been a huge Alisha Fontaine person.
Yeah, so, I mean, Shawn, what happened? Like, I mean, she's got an agent that's hustling for her, but she never got anything. I mean, French Quarter was probably her biggest role.
The one she's, I think, most known for sure, right? Remembered for. I mean, I don't know. And really, until fairly recently, I would say we didn't know where she'd win even, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty much after 70, 78, 79. She's done, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like she didn't do TV stuff, did she?
Not that I'm aware of.
I think so. Because she was always New. I think she was pretty much always New York. I don't think she went out to California. And French Quarter was shot on location, was it not? In New Orleans?
Yeah, it was. Yep, that was in New Orleans. Yep, all shot there.
She was in California. At least, I don't know that she was working a working actress in. I don't think she was. I think from that standpoint, you're correct, Casey. But she definitely did move to California for several decades, I think. But I don't know what she was doing out there. I don't know that it had anything to do with films or TV at that point.
Right. Oh, actually, you know what? You're right, because I found her attached to an address in Hollywood. Yes.
Yep.
So you were right. Yes. I don't know why I forgot that. Yes, that's right.
And also, that's where her and Kenny had their final meeting, was out in L.A. And he said she was obviously living out there as well.
The whole town knows a few things about you, too, Mother.
What do you mean?
There's a lot of men in this town that know you. Real good, Mother.
Francy, you're talking to your mother.
You know what it means when they say in the Bible, to know? It means to fuck.
Want to talk a little bit about her, a little bit more about her now, too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else do
I
you
think
know
so.
about
I had, as you guys know, I got so focused on Kenny Chandler, I kind of forgot about Alisha, believe it or not. And so I'm like, well, we
Kenny
better.
has a good story. It's easy to forget because Kenny's story sounds amazing. I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had a warm body to talk to on.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
But so I'm like, oh well, we probably need to look a little bit into Alisha's background. I'm glad I did, because we found her. I believe it's safe to say at this point. We at least determined where she came from, and we believe where she's at. We believe she's still around. So she was born in Virginia. She grew up, it looks like, in New Jersey, about 60 or 70 miles from where Francy was shot. So southern New Jersey. She was she was in the drama club, the varsity club. She played hockey, it seems like, in high school. And not long after high school, she graduated, I think, in 67. So about a year later is when she starts showing up in these columns and, promotions in New York City. So I'm thinking she probably got on the first train north, up the Northeast corridor to New York City after graduation. I don't know that, but it wasn't long after graduation that she shows up in New York City there. And again, she sort of dropped off the planet after 79-ish. I think there was a TV show that has her credited in like 91 or something like that, right?
Oh, really?
I wonder about that.
I've not verified at all whether that's accurate or not. It doesn't feel like it, but it could be. You never know.
It possibly, yeah. Maybe she knew somebody and they threw her a favor. It's possible. All those years later.
So I went through that very quickly, but I think it's safe to say that's a lot more than we knew about her a week ago. So
absolutely. I will say I almost called her earlier today. So to give you an idea of whether she's worth reaching out to or not, but I said no, I'll wait, because I was like, I'm not good at cold calls. I have to figure that one out.
You got to prep yourself a little bit, psych yourself up.
Yeah, I think so. I can't just be like, yeah, we're doing an episode about Francy's Friday. What do you want to? Yeah, exactly. You know this, Shawn. The best, you know that you have to kind of prepare an approach for people. Yeah,
you got to prepare an approach, and you have to prepare yourself too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Mentally.
Yes, right. And yeah, I was not in the right headspace for that. I was just kind of like, ooh, great, okay. I'm glad I didn't pick up the phone.
Yeah.
That would have ended badly, potentially.
that one's too good to do on a spur of the moment.
No, you can't throw that away. Right, exactly. You kind of have to prepare for that. Yeah.
All right. Where do you want to go next, guys? You want to talk a little bit more about people or places or things?
Oh,
I am looking at the cast list again. Well, I wanted to ask you about, running through. Those are the two main ones that we know, but there also is credited the girl who plays Alisha, as a child.
Oh, yeah, the little girl.
What's the story? Is there any story there? Because I wonder if that's the daughter of someone.
I think there is. That was, let me get to my notes on that. I got so much on Kenny here.
Yeah,
Barbara
Lynn
Janosko. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Barbara Lynn Janosko. Yeah, she was a local. She's from Woodbridge, New Jersey, the local area, and her house, believe it or not, was right behind the cemetery where the first scene was filmed. So she truly was local to the filming there. Her father, it seems, may have been somehow in business with Ledger himself.
Yeah,
because at least one of the ads, I think, for the car wash company had their house listed as the address to reply to. So it seems like there was some connection there. Her father also had some kind of he did some kind of showing of China, fine China, or whatever, at the World's Fair in '64. So that's another World's Fair connection there. Now, whether that was a direct link to Ledger or just a coincidence, I don't know. But again, there was some direct link even before Francy as far as the business goes side of it.
Yeah.
She is still around, and I believe she lives in Florida now. And I think she lives about 20 miles from where my daughter goes to college. But I haven't reached out to her because I figured she was pretty young, and I don't know if she would remember enough to warrant rattling that tree or not.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. You never know with kids. Yes.
Right. She's not a kid any longer, but yeah.
Right. And I mean, I don't know if she, because she's playing young Francy. I don't even know if she ever met. I mean, they probably met on the set. She probably met Alisha and Ken.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't think the call sheet was very extensive days here. I mean, we don't asking how long the shoot was. I can go back and ask him. That's the question I probably should have covered, but it probably wasn't weeks, So you're probably right. They were there at the same time, most likely.
Yeah. Before we talk, locations and stuff. Well, let's talk about Patrick Wright and Tally Cochran, who I was like watching the movie. I'm like, when are they going to show up? Where are they? And then they show up at the very end, and then kind of steal the movie. Honestly,
no. Patrick is in really annoying mode again. This is Patrick. This is Patrick and Sassy Sue mode. This is not. He is. This is totally not. This is not my boyfriend Patrick Wright at his best. I'm just like, here we go.
He's doing like a Sassy Sue voice. He's doing like his
correct, and he's on every single line he says has a voice or is dripping in has an accent or is dripping in like sarcasm. And I'm just like, I hate this. But Tally plays the Southern Belle as she loved to do, as she was often asked to do, because she was a Southern Belle. She's from, Alabama. They met in California, then flew to Rome together and worked a little bit in dubbing, which I would love to hear those voices in any of those films, but I never have.
Well, he clearly loves doing voices, so...
Clearly, but she also did too. Like even going, when they eventually went back to California and got involved with like a comedy troupe. I forget the name of that troupe, but they did characters' voices and stuff, both of them. But yeah, the connection again to casting in New York, where they kind of fell into that casting agency after Linda gave it up, and so they inherited all those clients and all the actors and everybody. So they were really involved with casting softcore and hardcore because Linda apparently did not want to cast hardcore. So producers who were coming to her were doing it for softcore because she didn't want to cast hardcore. Mm-hmm. But Tally had no problems with that. And she was doing hardcore herself on the side and a few little things. Yeah. And Patrick too. And there's a few films with that in there, but not a lot. It was mostly sex show stuff they were doing. But yeah, they ran away from New York after they got wind that the mob was going to close in on them because they basically had a Rolodex of people that could potentially drop the dime on and get them in trouble with the law for making sex films. So they ran back to California and she did a little casting out there. Not that much though. I think they were mostly involved with like acting and doing other production. Patrick and she, I think they got involved with like producing in little tiny movies here and there. Yeah. I mean, it's fun to see them. It's also because they're some of the only other recognizable people in this film.
Right.
So I do like that.
I asked Kenny if he remembered them.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, I don't remember. I'm like, well, I said, well, she's the one of the pool scenes that had a very strong Southern accent and was the first to disrobe. And he's like, oh yeah, I remember that. So he remembered that.
Very memorable, Miss Tally. Yeah.
Well, she's got a really cool outfit too. She's got like that bowler hat and like the black outfit. Yes. Yeah, she's got She looks great.
She does. I mean, she was always really adorable, and I always, you know that I'm a diehard Tally person, not just because I knew her, but also I loved her even before then. And Patrick, I typically love too, but he is so annoying in this. He looks good. I'll give him that. I can't deal with his character. I love the blonde in those scenes. Actually, the blonde who has the speech, who has that dialogue with her about talking about how. Actually, it's kind of sad where she's kind of like, well, I have to do what my man wants because, I figure he's worth it. And it's like a terrible message to give Francy. It was kind of like, well, just settle, basically. He's worth it, right? I'll just do whatever he wants because it's worth it to keep him, right? And it's like, no, No, it's not. So yeah.
Well, that's
the only other name I got for you guys is the father. I actually discovered who that was, and
That's
I discovered who he was when I was looking for Michael Nimitz, who you'll remember from some hours ago now, was one of Curt Ledger's early partners back in the 60s. And I was looking for him, and right in front of me, there two pictures down from Michael Nimitz's picture was this face, and I'm like, well, shoot, that's Francy's father.
Wow.
His name, I believe, was Bruce Karch. He was local, yet again from the Woodbridge, Metuchen, Edison area, was heavy into theater in that region for at least through the 60s. He had an unfortunate incident in the early 70s where he was in an car accident, and accidentally killed a guy in the accident. And then a couple years later, he also passed away. So he died, I think, in 75, fairly young. I think he was only 52 when he passed away. But yeah, so we've got one more name now of the Francy's mystery to fill in.
You mean to tell me you're going to tell me you to go out with? Who do you think you are, my manager or something?
Well, who is Henry Charles? That's behind the camera.
Henry Charles, yes. We skipped over him. So he is not listed in the credits, but he is identified in a few articles, local articles, around the time of filming. Henry Charles, or Henry Charles Fleischman, I think was his full name. I think he's the single most important reason Francy's Friday is not another She Came on the Bus.
Yeah,
because he started in World War II. He started filming as a photographer, cinematographer. After the war, back home in New Jersey, he opened up his own company, basically his own studio. He has this old house in Woodbridge, or Edison, actually, that he converted the old house and the property around it into a studio. And for decades, he did primarily civic and industrial and educational type films, and not small budget either. I saw one article that identified that this was probably in the 70s, but that the average budget was like $1,000 a minute. So that's not small potatoes, certainly not. No. She Came on the Bus type budget there. So he knew how to make films, and he knew how to do it quickly, and he knew how to do it effectively and professionally. And he was identified in one of these articles as the cameraman. I'm pretty sure he was the guy pulling most of the strings, though, as far as how this film was shot, how it was blocked, how it was put together, everything. And then, yes, Ledger was there, and yes, he was giving direction. But again, this is, I think you'll both will have to agree, a far more, actually one of the more competent films of this type of genre.
Yes,
and I think it has a lot to do with Charles.
I wonder, if he edited as well, because the editing is really good too. Yeah. So we don't know.
He had an editing studio in his studio, an editing studio. So yeah, I mean, if it wasn't him, it was someone in his studio, sort of, cabal there, if you will. That I'm sure all the post production was handled by him and his studio.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we heard Ledger's whole backstory. Like, he clearly had help in making this.
Yeah. And Charles actually was Henry Charles. There are films, and they were out there. I got to find them again on archive, but there were films that he shot at the World's Fairs, like professional films that he shot at the World's Fair as well. So again, we've got a third sort of thread back to the 1964 World's Fair. I just think there must have been a group of guys in Woodbridge area that just all took the same train into the fair and got to know each other that way.
Right. Well, because didn't Ledger also, he mentioned that he had an advertising company too, right? So I wonder if that was kind of it. Well, where the World's Fair wanted local people involved for obvious reasons, but then that would also, like, advertising agencies at that time would have had a connection to like industrial filmmakers, because they would be involved with shooting like, the industrial films and things like that. So yeah, but it's just interesting that all of that seems to have skipped to Francy's Friday, and it doesn't seem like it was part involved with She Came on the Bus, but maybe because that was a much more quick, let's make a buck production, whereas this seems like they're really trying to do something here.
Yeah.
She Came on the Bus is, hey gang, let's throw a show on in the barn for grandma and grandpa. And Francy's Friday was, let's make a movie.
Yes. Right. It also kind of reminds me a lot of a movie that I bring up way too much, which is Pamela You Are, which is, it's a movie that has very high aspirations. And it's another case of a director whose first movie was not technically great and then pulls out all the stops for his next big movie. But I'm also noticing a trend in that we've covered several films on here where the cinematographers make the film. So we've talked about the Tony Orlando movies where Chuck Smith is the reason why those are good. We talked about Satan in High Heels last week. Hershenson cinematography elevates that film because the director, Gerald Inchvator, didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's such an interesting recurring trend in sexploitation that this reliance on really good technicians to actually put in the work to make these movies look good. And it's just interesting because I think the genre is typically not associated with visual style for whatever reason.
Sometimes, but
yeah.
No, I think, you're right. Because I think also the case is sometimes the director is more a producer in a lot of cases.
Right.
So they're not really directing. They're just putting their name on there.
Right.
Yeah, I got a few more locations I want to point out just because.
Yes.
So the house, the Francy's house, I won't give the exact address, but it was on Middlesex Avenue in Colonia, New Jersey. And for those that aren't aware, there's kind of this group of little communities: Edison, Metuchen, Island, Woodbridge, Colonia, and Menlo Park. They're all sort of together right there in that part of central Jersey. So they're all sort of interchangeable. And that's my area of New Jersey, like I said earlier there. So the house, it's all over the place now, but it's actually right now, in the last decade or so, there's a heavily Indian population that's moved in and lives there now. But historically, it's been middle class, upper middle class. What you'd expect, a typical 60s, house to look like, that would be in Colonia type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, they got a pool in the backyard, so they're doing all right.
Yeah. And the pool's still there. The house is still there. And when I visited in 2023, it looked a little worse for wear. It also looked like they might have started on some renovations that may or may not still have been going on. But the house is still there and it sold a few years ago I had the number somewhere here. In 2019, it sold for $417,000.
Oh, that's not that much.
That's really good.
That area, not at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's listed. It's not listed now, but it's quoted at $900,000 now. So whether they would get that or not, I don't know. So this house, I think, and if you look at it, I think they filmed primarily on the lower section by the pool. That whole living room area is the bottom sort of. That's probably the public area of the house. Mm-hmm. They use the kitchen. And you can go online, and from 2019, you can still see the pictures. That kitchen, it's been upgraded and everything, but the layout is exactly the same. And then they used 1 or 2 bedrooms upstairs. So there's a whole center section of that house that wasn't used in the film, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I think, and Kenny said he got the feeling that the Ledgers probably lived there at the time.
Yeah, this is hands off this section. You guys can film in these parts, but don't go in here.
Right.
Yep. So I got to looking into the house itself, the address. And again, it was used for the Ledger Machine Company, the car wash company. And then things so that was around early 71, an ad Ledger posted for LPR Productions looking for a rock band to score a film. And he used that thing. Now, that's interesting because we got Kenny. We didn't get a rock band, but we got Kenny. Right. But we got Kenny through an agent, not through the ad. So anyway, he was putting that
interesting. Yeah, because all the rest of the music is KPM, except for the Kenny Chandler stuff. All of that is library music. Even the vocal rock tracks are KPM. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe he was hoping to not use KPM, but anyway. But that does link us to that address for sure. We also get the car wash ads, and also in the Philly papers, even this Philly, we get the address. Actually, in the Philly papers in 70 and 71, that's where I had the note. That's when they were using the Janosko's address. So the car wash company started at the Janosko's address, then moved to the Colonia address in 71 when the film was being shot. Now, here's where things get really interesting. In January 71, there's an article about this guy named Frederick Myers that was arrested at that address, and it made it sound like that was his residence. Now, Frederick Myers was the nephew of a guy named Vincent Canara, probably pronouncing that wrong. Vincent Canara was a very well-known local mafia guy.
Oh.
Now, again, I don't know. Maybe he moved out and the Ledgers moved in early 71. But then in 72, a lady named Joyce Johnson was listed as living there. She was stabbed and killed in a bar down in South Amboy. It had nothing to do with, basically the guy was trying to hit on her and she said, "Get lost." He goes out, gets a knife, and she gets lost basically there. So, but that's two interesting sort of bookends to the window that we know the Curtis Ledger was at that house. So you got a mafia guy and you got a stabbing. So a few more things. So I already mentioned the car wash where Kenny first sees Francy and she meets the guys that they then go to the airport. That car wash was a Curtis Ledger car wash. So I don't know that he owned it, but it definitely was one of his installations. Wow. And that gas station is still there, although it's been renovated heavily. I actually got gas there one day.
I was going to say about car washes. I mean, the stereotype about car washes is that there's some sort of money laundering scheme or something shady going on there. So
like a Breaking Bad situation. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's a cash business. Absolutely. Now that airport that they go to, where she has that whole segment around the foam. I sent you guys the ad for that. Remember that shows the actual foam that she has, holding it like she held it exactly in the film there.
Yes.
Right. So
yes.
That airport was called the Hadley Airport. It was a kind of a private, I think, airport, and it was either already shut down or about to be sort of mothballed, shut down. And now there's nothing there. There's a lot there. There's restaurants and strip malls and a hotel. And I'd heard that there was a plaque that commemorated. So I went out there one day, and sure enough, there's a little plaque in the sort of roundabout in front of a Holiday Inn Express, sort of in the bushes, that commemorates the Hadley Airport. Okay. When I got there, it was like one of those Spielberg sort of movements where I zoom in and zoom out at the same time, because I'm looking at this plaque, and it says, "This was placed by the Engelhard Corporation." Well, that's my company.
What? Oh my God! What? That's really crazy.
It's not what it's called now, but when I started working there 28 years ago, it was the Engelhard Corporation. So yeah,
that is really crazy. Wow.
Now, where's the plaque commemorating Francy shooting up Vagisil on this location?
That is crazy. Yes, that scene actually. Is that why you asked if it was a dark comedy? Because of that scene. A lot going on. That is a comedy scene, sort of. Yeah.
Wow. I was not expecting that for sure. I don't think you guys were either going into.
But it reminds me again. Yeah, that Monica Gale movie, Sandra. There's like some sort of product like that.
Yes.
So it was in the zeitgeist at that moment. I think in the early 70s, this form of contraceptive.
It was almost like she was using it as a shield, like these guys are never going to...
But that too, yeah. That's what makes it funny in that scene, yeah.
Right.
The motorcycle montage, I'm convinced, was on US 1, also in that same area, and that's because of the high power lines you see on the thing. I'm very familiar with that road. I hate it with all my guts. It's a terrible road to drive on or be around. It's a terrible traffic trap in that area. The pond that you see them running on, that was Seeley's Pond. That was a bit north. That was up in Scotch Plains, New Jersey, which is a little bit further north. But that's a public park in the Watchung Reservation. And finally, the last thing I got for you guys, and I'm losing my voice, so it's time to shut up probably. The little hamburger joint that Kenny goes into, where he sees Alicia's number on the wall, or Francy's number on the wall.
Yeah,
that was the Chips Hamburgers, and I believe it was on Route 22 up in North Plainfield. So again, up near where She Came on the Bus was filmed. I think the building's still there. They've built on a whole front to it, but if you go around the back, that definite frame is still visible, jutting out of the broader structure that's there. So the interesting thing, that phone number that you see on the wall, that was Ledger's phone number.
Oh my God. Of
That was
course.
his actual car.
To his
Wow.
house or like to the car wash?
To his house.
Oh my God,
Damn.
that is so funny.
That's
Hey, maybe
wild.
some business opportunities will come his way.
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah, always the promoter, right?
Always.
I guess, or having his little girl answer the phone, surprising people. Well, that is something I did want to ask Shawn, because that is something that I'm in total awe of with you. One of many things I'm in awe of with you is the how you're able to identify locations, because it's not just like this is a case of of a film that's shot in areas that you're familiar with, but like Only House in Town, you found that location, I believe, and there are other locations that you've been involved with on other DVD extras, I think, too. So like, how does your brain work? How does that
Don't
work?
say it, Shawn.
You don't have to give the secrets
Don't
away,
tell
but
us.
I'm just kind of like, it's really super duper impressive to me. It's really incredible.
Yeah, I don't try to explain it. I will give you the entire story of Only House if you have me back for that, and I promise I won't be as well. No, I'll be just as long.
I'm tempted. I'm actually tempted. I'll think about it. Yes.
There's stories in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and I appreciate that, Casey. It means a lot, especially coming from you, who we won't get too wishy washy on ourselves here, but you're one of those guys whose name was always out there, and I'm like, but to now be working with you, it's a pleasure. So, but I can't answer that. Just I've always just had a knack. I think a lot of it comes from I'm a very suspicious and untrusting person to begin with. So because of that, I look at not just what's in front of me, but what's also not in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times the absence of things tell us more than if we see something. And I'm also tenacious, and I have for certain things like finding people and locations, I think I can have immense focus and patience. Patience is, I think, the biggest ingredient for any of this stuff that we do. And I don't let things go either. That's the other bit of it, I guess. So It's not that I'm any better at it than anyone else. It's that maybe that I just stay with it is the secret. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you got good results. I still remember when we were recording an episode, and it was literally, I think, 30 minutes after you texted me all the Doris Poro stuff that you'd found.
Oh, yeah.
Then you were sending me more updates as we were recording. It's like, oh, Shawn just messaged me. He found more info. And I was like, who would have thought that name was a real name on the credits of this trashy movie? And I was like, well, yeah, of course Shawn would find this. Of course,
and that's another great example of IMDb being misleading, right? Because it had the wrong person with her name on it. There's one other story, Casey, I want to tell about you. It was one of my personal, I think, achievements that I'm most proud of. I used to do these April Fool's things on Facebook. And there was one year where I did one on the Something Weird Facebook group. I sort of took that over. I don't know if you remember this, Casey, or not, but I did one where I found an article on the lady that was that played Dora in Bat Pussy. I'd found an article about her, and I had this whole thread where she was arrested and she'd been identified in this film, and it was her whole story. And of course it was a joke at the end, but I'd made up these fake articles that I thought they looked pretty real, and I posted them, and people were believing it. And then like, wait a minute, it's April 1st, but no, wait a minute, he's got the article here. And at the end, I give it away by saying, she was let go. The judge let her go on all charges when a very young Dennis Campa, said that if you arrest her, he'll never be the same man. He'll supposed to grow, something like that, right? So I put Dennis in there. But I remember your comment on that is you came in fairly late in the day, so the whole thing was already there, and you'd said, I can't, something along the lines of, I can't believe the roller coaster I just rode, something along those lines. And I'm thinking, all right, I fooled him. I know I did something there.
Yes, that was brilliant. I do remember that. Yes, I do remember that. Yeah, it's been a while, Shawn. We've talked back and forth for forever. And every time you're in town, I never get to see you.
Yeah, we've been floating around each other for some time. And I feel like, one of those, I don't know. It's like in high school, they get a date and she just wouldn't show up. That's how I feel like now with you.
Oh, which is terrible, actually. And I honestly, the same thing happened with Alex, where Alex came to town for the Milligan thing, and I was supposed to meet him. I went
You
down
slept through it.
I slept through the screening, and then there was a thing I was supposed to meet him and Joe Rubin after they got back from Staten Island, and I didn't get a chance to meet them. So trust me, it is not personal, and it is not you. It is a me thing because I'm cuckoo bananas. So I need to get my shit together, which I think everyone knows.
Well, that you're supposed to meet me that day too, so that was strike 2 for you.
That's right. Yes, that's right. I forgot what strike 1 was.
Letting you off the hook on the last one. That's a ball. It's not a strike. So,
right. Yes. Well, yeah. When Bowen, when you have Bowen for like 5.5 hours, you need to rest and take it all in.
And I got to tell you guys, you read my little thing last week, which I'll claim I'm the guy that wrote that to you guys, because I meant,
yes,
it wasn't hyperbole. I meant every word of it. And I think when all is said and done, that Bowen episode is going to be seen as a turning point for you guys, because for me anyway, it is, because you've done good stuff for the 30 whatever before that, really great stuff. That's an important one, though. Not that the others aren't, but that one truly, I think, is going to be looked at and referenced, and we need to package it up and put it in the pantheon. It's just that good. Again, I don't want to get too hyperbolic on it, but it's important. I'll put it that way.
Well, like we said, we hope we lit a fire under Bowen a little bit.
I think we did. I think I mentioned it was a case where I think he's been kind of disconnected from it for a while because of other projects he's working on. But I think talking about it and getting asked questions like, oh, right, I do know the answer to that. Oh, right. And no, I know this. Oh, I have this stuff in my collection. And just like, it was talking shop, which he hadn't done in forever, I think. So it really was kind of like a reminder. Oh, right. I know a lot about this shit, and I need to put it down. Not that I'm saying that him doing that made him realize I need to do the books. I think it's been gestating, but no, I appreciate you saying that. That's kind of what we've been trying to do. And that's why I was so excited we finally got to have you on, because I know that I've said it on here before, your research skills are like incredibly impressive to me. So anytime I'm like, well, I can't find something, let's see if Shawn can figure this out. And 9 times out of 10, you figure it out. And if it stumps us both, then I know. Like the Joel Landwehr thing, where we're still stumped on that, that's just going to take a lot more. But, that's kind of a sign of like, if Shawn can't figure it out, I think we might be screwed here. Because I have that much faith in your work and what you do that,
Let's append the word "yet" on that. We can't figure it out yet. I'm not done with that. That's what I can. We may put it to the side, but we're coming back to Mr. Joel. Yeah.
Yes, I had to take a break, but I mean, yes. Well, actually, next time in New York, we need to go to Filmmakers Co-op so that you can watch that. Because that movie is wild, and I think they will just let you record the whole thing on your phone. I just didn't because I didn't want to get in trouble, but they didn't give a shit by the end of the day. I'll just record the whole thing on my phone.
Oh, we'll bring some equipment then.
We're throwing a party there.
Yes, exactly.
In the corners of the mind, all the stories I can find that let me see why it's not she, just a fragment left behind. She's with freedom hand in hand, just a young girl running wild, with no answers to her questions, like a lost and lonely child. Let her do her thing, I'll be there. So let her try her way.
late.
Yes, I was.
Did you make love to her?
Yes.
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description.
Okay, I'm ready. Welcome to Split Your Head, a bi-weekly podcast hosted by me, Bob, that covers the gamut of all things horror, exploitation, cult, underground, experimental, transgressive, bizarre, and indie. I've been fortunate enough to connect with some of the most groundbreaking and upcoming filmmakers, writers, and artists. Don't expect a typical interview. I love shooting the shit with my guests and stumbling on surprising topics that'll literally split our heads. From splatter comedies to nihilistic sleaze, uncomfortable art house to genre classics. If it gets my brain buzzing and cracking wide open like a watermelon full of blood, then I would like to share it with your ears. Now a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network. Hi, Mom.